Hemshech Ayin Beis, Volume 1 of Hemshech Ayin Beis. We're up to Discourse 33, chapter 131. So at the bottom of page Reish Nun Gimel, 253. So this mem is called Anoichi. And second out of Shavuos, Tafresh Ayin Gimel. Second out of Shavuos, Tafresh Ayin Gimel. And here the Friedrich Rebbe writes the summaries. He has the summaries of the beginning of each discourse. He says, "Ha'avos imshichu b'chinas ad bli dai." That the patriarchs, the avos, drew down or transmitted the level of ad bli dai. In the previous discourse, the Friedrich Rebbe said that the summary of the Maimon was based two hamshachas, two transmissions, one finite, one infinite. So, we're discussing here is the book of interfaces, which is Ayin Beis, and I'll say something which I think is a little bold to say, but I'll say it anyway. The more I look into the sources, especially Eitz Chaim, which is the Arizal, the more I feel convinced that the whole Ayin Beis is coming to explain one particular passage in Eitz Chaim, or one section in Eitz Chaim. I mean, though we say that Rabbi Marash said that not like the world thinks that Chassidus is an explanation of Kabbalah, but Kabbalah is an explanation of Chassidus. As the Rebbe explains in Kuntis and Yon Shoteres Chassidus, that Chassidus is Yechida, and Kabbalah is Seid, is Chaya. Yet, it's obviously also clear that Chassidus came after Kabbalah in time. So it's true that once you learn Chassidus, you realize how Kabbalah is an explanation of Chassidus, because Chassidus is far more all-encompassing. See, Chassidus doesn't just talk about one piece of Torah, it takes all the sections and brings it all together. So, at the end of the day, in a way, Chassidus is an all-encompassing picture. But there's one particular Eitz Chaim that we just learned in the last chapter that I had read before already, and I realized that the Ayin Beis is very much based on it. But now that he quoted it and I looked at more detail, I realized how that entire section is called Shar Drushei Abiyah. In Eitz Chaim, there's a shar called Shar Drushei Abiyah. Abiyah is Atzilus Bri Yitzir Asiyah. By us, it's Shar Mem Aleph, which is gate 41. In Alter Rebbe's times, it was Shar Mem Beis, because it was a different print they had. They used a different print, Koretz. A different edition was gate 42. But regardless, the whole chapter there, which is the whole section actually, has several chapters, it talks about interfaces. And it's just when you read it, and you read Ayin Beis, it's just so, you can't ignore the parallels. Except obviously Ayin Beis is far more elaborate. But I would be fascinated if you guys want to learn that. I would learn that Eitz Chaim, because it's relatively easy Eitz Chaim. I mean, easier than Ayin Beis, I can tell you that's for sure. But relatively easy, I mean, it's not as Kabbalistic as other texts, which have a lot of cryptic terms and levels and so on. It's pretty much very logical, scientific, I would even say. I mean, not scientific, I would say modern scientific, but scientific in its organization of understanding. It's like he categorizes existence and all the levels. Everything in number 4. The interesting thing is everything is in multiples of 4 there. And it's like constant, and with interfaces between each level and each level. Interfaces between mineral and vegetable, which he calls the coral. They have interface between vegetable and animal. This is called Adnei Hasada. In the Mishnah, there's the creatures that grow from the earth, and there's halachas connected to it. And a monkey, he calls the interface between man and animal. Wow. The Eitz Chaim. And then he talks about the interfaces between divine and human, which is what we learned in this last chapter, the interface between divine and human. But the more you read it, the more you see how Keser plays a major role. That's where the big chiddush of the Arizal is, that Keser is the ultimate interface, and Ayin Beis is all around Keser. So I just wanted to throw that into the pot here. So we'll discuss it more, but when you read that Eitz Chaim, it's under... Yeah.
Do they say anything about evolution between these different species, this interface thing? How they connect to the chimpanzee connects to the human being?
He doesn't talk about evolution, no. It's not Darwinian Eitz Chaim. It's Arizal's Eitz Chaim.
Fascinating to know the difference.
Yeah, but anyway, the point I want to make is that the whole structure of the discussion there is very, very resonant. When you read Ayin Beis, the more you read Ayin Beis, the more you see the dissection. And I see constantly where, once you start reading it, you start seeing a plot emerging. You see that he keeps quoting certain Eitz Chaims and stuff like that. This, I've never heard this from any so-called reliable source, so this is probably the first anyone's really associating with it. But when I learned it, especially now, there's over the Shabbos, because I was looking at the Eitz Chaim to understand the Pshat in this last chapter, it became pretty apparent that it's very, very, again, I'm not going to say, but he's strong, bold enough to say that the Rebbe Rashab came to explain the Eitz Chaim, but you can't deny how much he quotes the Eitz Chaim and how it's like the underlying structure, because the Eitz Chaim basically establishes that Kesser is the interface. That's the chiddush of that piece of the Eitz Chaim. That's clear, that's for sure. Which is very much what Ayin Beis keeps going back to. Kesser. How Kesser is the interface, the higher part of Kesser, the lower part of Kesser, Atik, Arich, and so on and so forth. Just wanted to say that for the record. So yeah, we will do it. I don't know if today is the right time. We have to make copies of it so we can all follow along. I have Eitz Chaim here. Why don't you just bring your resident Eitz Chaim that sits on your living room table. It's a coffee table size, so it could be like a clip. Okay, so we'll do that. But going back to where we are, to give it a little context, because it's going to get far more dense as we go. It's critical to have always context. For me, that's the most important thing. What's the big picture? Because the details you can go back and analyze again and again. But if you lose the big picture, you lose the point. And the big picture continues to go back, however you twist and turn it, is to the unity, the fusion and integration of Gvul and Bli Gvul. Which really, if you want to put it in Mashiach terms, that's what Mashiach is. If you want to put it in any kind of terms, you want to put it in poetic terms, it's where heaven kisses earth. And this is the search for immortality that human beings have been seeking from the beginning of time. Can we finite creatures touch beyond? Touch the infinite. Not just touch it, can we integrate? Can we bring it into our lives? And there's no other way of putting it but that the Rebbe Rashab, Chassidus Chabad in general, Kabbalah even more in general, but the Rebbe Rashab in particular, in a meticulous fashion, like a master engineer, literally goes through every switch of the entire cosmic order. Simple as that. And every switch has to be accounted for, has to be understood, so we should be able to do the right repairs or the right tikkun or the right corrections or alignments, however one wants to put it. Obviously, we have our big battle on our hands, which is called Klippa, the concealment, the apathy, the ignorance, all the things that keep us from the dissonance, that keeps us from accessing it. But that too is part of the picture. Dissonance also has a science. It's a switch that was forgotten, or a switch that was not turned on, or concealed. So, if you put it in that context, that's what Ayin Beis is about. And so far, everything fits into that order. Everything we've learned. But more specifically, the Rebbe Rashab is building everything on essentially two transmissions from the divine. It really ends up being three. It's really two, but three. Two broad strokes. One is, you can call it Er HaGvul, call it targeted and focused energy, and the other is transcendent energy. And they're both necessary. And in the first section, called the first Masechta of Ayin Beis, which was from Shavuos Ayin Beis through Vayigash Ayin Gimel, basically from around April, say May 2012 till around December 2012, which we learned up to last Maimer. He basically covered the whole structure of what is Gvul, where is it rooted, establishing that there's also in energy itself there's structure, not just in the containers, how it's rooted all the way up to the 10 hidden spheres, how that was all envisioned by the infinite energy.
1912, not 2012.
I said, okay, that's a delay reaction correction, obviously, but 2012, it's 100 years later, right? That I will not argue with. So 1912 through 1913, right? I'm sorry, through December 1912. The second Masechta, where we are now, begins essentially, we could say, May 1913, with where we are right now, middle of learning now. But basically,
doing this half a year.
how many times do I have to say the same thing? I mean, you were not here when I spoke about it. I can't limit them. Say, remember, every day the class goes on, so there's definitely going to miss things. No, I'm not saying this is a complaint. You just be aware of that. And I just can't do everything in one class. That's the thing. There are Maimorim for that period, but they're not part of the Hemshech. Just again, for the record, the winters, the Rebbe Rashab would travel most winters until the war broke out. World War I, that is. So going back, so understanding the concept of Gvul, then he went back to Bli Gvul, to transcendence. The big challenge, understanding how these two meet, how these two interact, above all. Because transcendence is representing, let's call it the infinite dimension. Immanent energy, Pnimi, or Mamala, represents the immanent energy, which is the energy of existence, within life, within existence. And the classic example, that is one that you could always bear in mind, because it's always the example it goes back to, is Ratzon and Keiches. Where Ratzon is Keser, the transcendent energy, desire, doesn't have a particular, it's not localized, it's transcendent, yet it represents, it represents the soul's interests. It's Gili HaNefesh, Nitiyas HaNefesh, the inclination of the soul. At the same time, it is a desire, it already has a name, and it's going to associate with things it desires. However, it associates but remains apart from. So that's the classic example of transcendent energy. And there's another 11 differences. I didn't go through all of them. Yeah, Shlita is one of them. And then there's the faculties. The faculties reside in the body. Eres b'kelim. Energies within containers. And of course, this is not just an example. We are created b'tselem Elokim. So our Ratzon and Keiches is actually a physical incarnation of Ratzon and Keiches above. So if Atzilus is Adam Elyon, and we're created b'tselem Elokim, the divine image, the divine image has a desire and faculties, which are 10 spheres. So we too have a desire and faculties. So Keser, of course, plays a critical role here, because Keser is the interface between the Etzem and the faculties and the structure. And that's why he breaks it further down into a third level, that even the Er HaBli Gvul itself has a part that's Bli Gvul removed from the Gvul, and the other one is closer to the Gvul. So in desire itself, he has like the Gili La'atzmei and the Gili L'Zulase. Desire where you're consciously aware of what you want, and then there's how you begin to envision the other. That is called the Shir Atzmei B'Keach, where he estimates within himself what he wants to create. What we kept calling the infinite possibilities becomes one possibility. And it's still not Keiches yet. It's still Lifnei Tzimtzum, or still in Keser. Because all practical purposes, Keser and Lifnei Tzimtzum are interchangeable here. Because that comes down to microcosm, macrocosm. But that desire now for 10 spheres will become, obviously, the source for the 10 spheres. So you see that the structure is rooted in the infinite. But the infinite, not just an infinite plane, infinite itself goes through gradations, so to speak. Which, of course, is fascinating in itself. Most people don't think this way. Most people think infinite and finite are mutually exclusive. They don't meet. I mean, in the set of numbers, for example, in mathematics, there's a set of infinite numbers, a set of finite numbers, and they do have a relationship, and there are equations where you connect the two. But in all practical purposes, they don't meet. But remember, here, we're dealing with God, and God is beneath, beyond finite and beyond infinite. So for him, finite and infinite are both equally distant. So there's no problem saying that the finite has levels, so to speak. The infinite has levels, rather. And that ultimately defines itself in the finite. So this is what I just summed up, is really a big, I would say most of what he's discussed, in broad terms, obviously, not the details.
Could you say that God himself is the beginning of
No.
all of the levels later?
No. You can't define Atzmus. Atzmus has no beginning and no end. You You can't talk about Atzma. All terms are created. I just said, so all terms are created. So anything, how could you associate a term to the one that created that term? He created the terms, which means he precedes the terms. So there's no term, when you say, Huma keme shalel, ve'ena elam keme. He created logic, but he's not defined by logic. Let's put it this way, in Atzmus there are infinite more things that we can never talk about, and we will never know. And we're not meant to know. That doesn't mean we can't connect with Atzmus. And maybe we could also connect all the other things once you have the bittul enough to just accept that. I mean, the closest, all those are, so we don't talk about Atzmus. I don't know if you're talking about Atzmus. Talking about Etzem Ha'er? Because what I just said, the three levels are also not even Etzem Ha'er. There's really a fourth level, which is air itself, the concept of energy, which he made clear is even beyond Rotz, it's not even an unconscious desire. So all three that I just said are all Keser. That's the three interpretations of Keser. Silence. You're asking questions that you want to understand everything. I mean, what
we're talking always that you reach Atzmus.
Atzmus created the world. Everything is connected to Atzmus. Atzmus wants this world. Atzmus wants structure, wants Bligvul, and wants the unity of Gvul and Bligvul. He wants that. So yes, he wants it, but that doesn't mean that's him. He desired. Nesava Kodesh Baruch Hu liyas le'dira b'tachtenim. That doesn't mean tachtenim is Kodesh Baruch Hu. It means the Atzmus desired dira b'tachtenim. We don't know why he desired. We don't need to know why because there's no why there, actually. And it's perfectly fine. It's a pretty freeing thing to come to finally realize that you don't have to have an answer to why everything. Maybe the mere fact that we worship, we need a why, tells us that we're still limited. The reality doesn't need a why. Humans, a created reality, need why. Why is a defined. It's not the ultimate thing to know why. That's not the ultimate reality, is to know why. We're trained to think, if I knew why, I'd have all my answers. It's not correct. Why is a created reality? It's a limited perception. It's not bad to know why in the world where there's a why. Great, figure it out. But there's a whole reality where why doesn't matter. And that, by the way, is maybe the deepest thing we could ever say. It's even deeper than knowing the reasons, because you realize that there's a place that created the reasons. Now, the truth is that there's really almost two ways to say it, like he says. So this Keser Shtika. Shtika Keser is essentially the highest level I just spoke. That's like Atik. That would be where the Bligvul is not, the era Bligvul is not even yet a Rotzen, and then you can't even call it a Rotzen. You call it Eir Ein Sof, and you say it's Rotzen Hanelam Be'etzem. I think the Lashon is Rotzen Hanelam Be'atzmei or something like that. Let's see the exact Lashon. Yeah, Shezeh B'chinas Rotzen Hanelam Be'aposh She'ena Bo B'chinas Gili Klal. Pshittas Atzmus. It's the same, like it's a reflection of Pshittas Atzmus. And that too, he said, is not the highest. That's already, he says somewhere, still a makif of existence. Because it still has a relationship with existence. Because why is there such a level? That's what we're learning now. Then comes level 2, Keser, from the word Atara, like the crown is the highest. So it's above the structure, but it's already resting on the structure. So this is already a makif that is that's called Ratzon. Now you have a Ratzon. The desire for existence has emerged. But it's like Machshav, it's only to himself. And then comes Keser from the word.
That's not Arich, right?
That is like Arich.
But then you're splitting Arich into.
He does say Arich. There's the Chachmas Tema of Arich. And there's Meichen Midas and Melchus of Arich. So this is Chachmas Tema. Here there's a reason already, but it's not a reason we can never relate to. Because it's shtei kachol b'machshava. So it's interesting, they also use the word silence here. But it's not the silence that was mentioned before. The other silence is absolute silence. There's no reason altogether. And this is a silence which says, I have a reason, but you will not understand this reason. So it's already getting closer to, it's basically the unconscious divine. But there's a consciousness, it's not the unconscious, it's the unconscious. Then comes, still in Keser. Keser from the word that is Seviv, it surrounds all of Atzilus. So now this is already the closest level. And this is like Malchus and Midas of Arich, of Keser. That was the second one, yeah. Yudal, but also he spoke about it in chapter Kufchof, also 125. He referred to it. And then comes this one is already how The second level I just mentioned is infinite spheres. Spheres ain't cats. So you have the ultimate brightness there, but it's a brightness of spheres as they are beyond structure. Then in that level, what he calls the B'chinas Achreiner Shabeir Ein Sof, he desired a Ratzon Shir Asri B'Keich, the infinite possibilities. He wants to have 10 spheres. So the 10 spheres, as he says, there are no 10 spheres in the desire, but it's called 10 spheres because that's what he wants. So based on what's going to come from it, based on what's going to emerge from this desire, and this is already the lowest level of Keser. So you have here in Bli Gvul, you have 3 levels, really 4 actually, all below Atzmus, and 3 levels, and the lowest one is going to become the source Sheirish HaNetzalim. That's when Arich becomes the root for the emanations. And then comes the emanations, Chochmah. Now Chochmah, interestingly, the other way around as well. Gvul also works to meet. So Bli Gvul, so-called, gets closer and closer to Gvul. And Gvul, as you go up from Malchus, its Kalim diminish, and its energy becomes more manifest. Till Chochmah is the point where he says in Tanya, he keeps quoting from Tanya, Perek Lamed in the Hagah, that that's where Chachma feels, senses, hu levade ve'ein zulase, the emes of Elokus. So now we're talking about in the world of conscious wisdom, we have a sense of something beyond. And the key, of course, is the key, of course, is where those switches are the most important ones, where the Gvul meets the Bli Gvul. I wanted to add one more thing just to make it a little more palatable. He gave the example. He said the lowest level of Keser is also where Ratzon meets a reason. When Torah gives Torah, which is a mitzvah, which is just Ratzon Elyon, but the Torah gives us reasons for these mitzvahs, and as such also quantifies the mitzvah, saying this is a kalo, this is a chamura. That's an example for the lowest level of Keser. How there is so-called Keser already relating to our human reasoning. So we're able to learn the kavanah of a mitzvah, we understand different mitzvahs. That's how Bli Gvul meets Gvul.
Chachma? Is it Chachma?
It's the beginnings of Chachma Gluya. It's where Chachma meets Ratzon, yeah. It's not Chachma Stima, because it's not a concealed reason. It's reasons that we can relate to. It's where Ratzon meets Chachma, basically. But it's still in Ratzon, because as he says, when you do a mitzvah, you're still supposed to do it not because of even in the world where there's reasons, you're still supposed to sense the Bli Gvul, the Ratzon Elyon.
This meeting before this final step of the meeting with Ratzon and Chachma is that before the Tzimtzum Rishon? Are you looking on the map?
Yeah. It is. It's the 10 hidden spheres where the infinite Sphere Saint Ketz envisions 10 hidden spheres. Shir Atzmi B'Koyach. Yes, it is. It's called Malchus of Ein Sof.
Malchus Ein Sof before its own.
In chapter 27, he explained how could you call it the lowest of Ein Sof. There's no higher and lower there. So you go back to chapter 27. It's a very fundamental chapter. He keeps referring to it. So he speaks. He doesn't mean lowest in physical sense. 27. Chav Zayin. He doesn't mean lowest in physical sense. He means that it's only a piece of the whole puzzle of Ein Sof. So as a piece, it's the lowest, meaning it only has one little piece of it. Because there's the infinite possibilities of the artist chooses one possibility. That one possibility would be called Malchus of all the possibilities. Let's put it that way. For the Tzimtzum, or if you speak in Keser, these are interchangeable. The word Keser and the word Ein Sof Lifnei Tzimtzum can be interchanged here. It's also microcosm. Keser of Atzilus, in broadest terms, is like compared to existence, like Lifnei Tzimtzum. But it's not Lifnei Tzimtzum actually, because it's there are levels above it. But there's microcosm, macrocosm, and all these things. It's called Atzilus the Klolos, Atzilus the Pratis. I mentioned this many times.
Kacholo is higher than no end of spheres, right?
It's the same level as no end. Spheres, no end. That's the level. So there's spheres, but there's no end to them. It's like a chakim v'lei b'chachmi yediyah. So there's chakim, but not chachmi yediyah. You know.
So the beginning of
Antu chad v'lei b'chushban, that's atik. Antu chad is atik. V'lei b'chushban is arich. So it's cheshban, but lei b'chushban. It means spheres, but no. Because as soon as you say lei b'chushban, means it's in the world of chushban, but it doesn't have that spheres Saint Ketz. Same level as Chakim V'lei B'chachmi Yediyah, in the general picture of it. Look, if you go over, you're going to have to go over, if you really want to master this, you have to learn it inside and so on. I'm giving you a little summary, did a little homework for everybody. But But it's a fascinating picture, obviously, and there's a lot more detail than I just shared, or else Rabbi Rashab would need to write all this. I want to just bring it, the reason I'm saying this, because I want to just bring it to where we are right now. So now in the second Masechta, that's called phase 2 of Ayin Beis, which begins Shavuos 1913, right? And we'll continue on till where? We'll continue on. Does it continue on for? I think it also breaks. Let me just double check. Yeah, it also breaks. It also will break Vayera. Vayera. No, why Tetzei? Vayera. Vayera Ayin Daled. It will go to approximately May 1913, I would say, till October 1913.
Yeah,
I'm looking here. What are you saying?
And it jumps over to Taveh. Taveh's half a year.
Kiseitze Kisave is the same one parsha after the next. Why are you saying that? Vayera, he stops at Vayera and then takes again a break till Shavuos, till May 1914. 1914. Ayin Daled. And May 1914, then it will go already extend, I believe, all the way through 1915, because then he didn't take any break, because that's when he left. That's when the war broke out, 1915, and so the Rebbe Rashab couldn't travel to Europe, and that's where he just continues every week.
Where was he there?
In Lubavitch. He stayed in Lubavitch till the end of 1915. Basically, October 1915, a little less, November 1915 is when he would leave Lubavitch for good. Because in Rostov, he would go to Rostov. So all this is happening. Yes, it's important to know it's happening in real historical time, in World War I, which is like the water, basically the change of that. I mean, I said in this trailer about Ayin Beis. So Ayin Beis was being said and delivered in maybe the biggest juncture of all of history, because everyone knows World War I was World War II. They're all part of one flow. Look, Eliezer is going right out of his kalim. You better give him a bagel and put this back on.
I think the reference point is not World War I, Rabbi. It's the
Russian Revolution.
It's the general theory of relativity.
Okay.
That's what it is. In my opinion. I mean, obviously it's important.
No.
To
me,
100 years later, all the physicists are still dealing with that. That's the most fundamental thing. It's exactly here.
Eliezer, let me just add one little thing. I think World War I is connected to general theory of relativity. That's the point.
The Russian
I
Revolution.
mean, Einstein was in his patent office when he was doing it. He wasn't. But
it doesn't matter, but the world that we live in now, I don't care even if we had the general theory of relativity, if there's no World War I, World War II, we don't have this world that we have now. No way. In many, many ways. I think technologies would never have been developed because there would have been no wars. There would have been no atom. I mean, they may have developed, but it would have taken a lot more time, and it can go on and on. I can give you a whole bunch of things. I got a lot of theories on this.
it's amazing.
Let's put it this way. The Rebbe Rashab clearly...
It's really incredible. It's a parallel understanding of the world.
There you go.
It's much more to it.
Welcome to the club.
Parallel understanding.
I saw mine from the Rebbe Rashab.
You've become a chassid today.
I got so much.
I know which one they're talking about.
It's not unbelievable. It's not mine just came up from the Rebbe Rashab. Taveh Shama Chibol days. It says a few yichidim. They explain exactly according to the years.
Where's it printed? Oh no, it's printed. It's a Bavusta one. Yeah, printed in the... Yeah, what do you mean just come out? It's available. Where?
They print it now by the Alter
Special
Rebbe.
booklet by the Alter Rebbe now.
Okay, but I know the man with all the kufis and everything. It says the Rebbe brings it. They say it's the Leinoida Lami. They used to not know who was associated. I don't even know. I still don't know if they have 100% proof who's the Rebbe Rashab.
No.
It's not his Ksav Yad. Yeah, but we knew it in the Sichos. We zeichen it in the Sichos. Tav Shenun was a ketz. Because Tav Shenun was like, according to this.
Tav Shenun is quasi his chatzes, exactly.
Yeah, so we wrote there's a whole things in Sichos about it.
You know about it.
This year I Gimel.
Okay, let's go on here. So now, in the second, it's Tav Shenun was 5750. 3 quarters through the day, through the Aleph. Depends. It's 2 ways to count, but if you count night and day, then it's like noon. If you count,
it's even 3 quarters of the day.
Yeah, it's like plug.
Depends where you count from. from Netzach or from
So there's two opinions, whether you count night and day, whether Elef Shana is a half night, half day, so a 24-hour period, or is it a 12-hour period? So if it's a 12-hour period, it's every 3 hours is 250 years. If it's a 24-hour period, then every 6 hours is a 250-year period. I mean, it's a...
You said it's not a Rebbe Rashab before it?
It was always, no one's 100%. Now they have more or less, they think, almost clear proof that yes. But the signal is not the Rebbe Rashab so much when you learn it. The Rebbe has it already. It's in the Sichos already Chelik Aleph, Chelik Beis. There it says L'chosid lo neida or Hanocha lo neida lemi. I'm not sure who it is. Then when we worked on it later, there are say that it was the Rebbe Rashab, but it's not. It's printed in Sefer Mamorim Tofres Samach Gimel in the Sofos. So there it's printed as if it's a Rebbe Rashab's Maimer. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just want to be pure accurate. It's still. Recently, there's been more and more proof that yes, I think they found another ksav. Yeah, but there's no goof. See, if you don't find the Rebbe Rashab's actual writing, that means someone wrote it. So the question is, who wrote it? Did he hear it from the Rebbe Rashab or not? So one Hanoch it says that they heard it from the Rebbe Rashab. Shamanu me Admur Rashab or something like that. So that would be. I'm not. It's regardless. The Rabbi bring it. The Rebbe brings it, so it's reliable.
It's really powerful. I know. So what's the title? It's in the end of you will love it. Because the Rebbe Rashab is describing everything, the whole entire history, what's going on.
End of calculation.
Yeah. It's basically what we know in general that Erev Shabbos before. Right. We eat from the taste from the food before Shabbos, which is why the Gilead of the Chassidus came now. And then he breaks it. He breaks it when the Baal Shem Tov was, when the Arizal was. And
even until his time.
Yeah, and Tafresh, etc., etc. So now in the second section here in Ayin Beis, where we're learning now, we finished the first mimer in the second section. He's now going further and explains, the question begins now is this: what is the role? What is the purpose of the Eir HaBlikvul? What is its real function? So if you recall, in the first section we did learn some of that. We learned that you have to say that it has some impact on existence. And he went through a bunch of chapters there in I think it was the Mems, the Nuns, where he discussed the impact of Tehirei Law, which is the 10 hidden spheres, basically. He says that impacts on Mesiras Nefesh of the Guf. When a person is able to give their body Mesiras Nefesh, that power comes from that Makif. He spoke about the power of Ak, Tir Tata, and the Makifim after the Tzimtzum also impact existence. Basically, the impact is all not in the structure of existence, it's all piercing the structure with, let's call it, transcendent energies. So the mere fact that we're able to experience transcendence, whether it's Mesiras Nefesh of your soul or your body,
Samach.
It's in the Samach. Okay, yeah. But it's not just Samach. It's a few chapters there where he goes. Samach, right? Correct. Samach and on, right? Chapter 60 and on. That section 60 to around 67, he went through all the Makifim of Naran Chai, actually, Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chai Yechida, how each of them impact existence. But here we're talking much more broader terms. What is the general purpose of this Eir HaBlikvul? Now, the way he defines it, like we've said with Ratzon, all it is Gilead Atzon. He says clearly it has no purpose. The Eir HaGvul, he says, would not be shayach, would not be possible if God didn't want existence. Why would he need to have 10 hidden spheres? There's no reason. Now again, you could always ask, God doesn't need reasons. I understand. But we're talking about once he's willed existence like ours and made 10 spheres and logic and so on, there has to be a reason for it within this world. So, you could apply the same thing. The same thing that God said he wants a world with reason, you could also apply the Ratzon Seichel thing I just said. That even though there's a Seichel in it, and God reveals the Seichel, but ultimately it's because God desired as such. But what did he desire? He wanted a relationship with existence. So therefore, there are 10 spheres, and there's a desire for the 10 spheres, as it says, a Gili Le'elamis. But Gili Min Ha'etzem, what's the purpose of it? And you can't say that it has to be, because it's a Gili Ritzeni, God doesn't need it. Even the Gilim and Etzmi doesn't need. There's no need for it. So he says, so you have to say that it also has a purpose. And it's also for existence. The purpose is the opposite. The Er Legal Elemis, the Er HaGvul, its purpose is to create. And the Er HaBligvul, its purpose is to elevate. Or the way he uses Gili Be'elemis, and to bring bittul, to affect bittul in the world. That's the answer, the brief answer. That Er HaBligvul brings, because the Er HaGvul itself is subject to gradations. Its purpose is to shape existence. Its purpose cannot be to unshape existence, so to speak. Er HaBligvul is coming to take the shape and sublimate it and reconnect it to the divine. That's chapter, what I just said is chapter 128. But then 129, he comes back with a rejoinder. Is that a word?
It's a word.
That's so with the rejoinder, I'm just summing up, so we'll have context here.
A rebuttal. No.
I said a rejoinder, not a rebuttal. No. That says, on the other hand, we have to understand. And the divine energy within existence does not affect bittul. Of course it affects bittul. Here we live in a world where we can be selfish, self-absorbed, and when you're aware that God blesses you with your food, with your health, with the brachas in your life, with life itself, that's er mamal, it's er within existence. To recognize the divine within existence is also a pretty nice feat. It also creates some bittul. So what's the difference, in other words, between this bittul and when we say that HaBligvul affects bittul? So his answer is not that you'd assume it's two levels of bittul, right? That's not what he answers. Maybe later he does. Here he says the answer is the bittul that Er Primi affects is because it's connected to the Er Ein Sof. It's coming from the Er HaBligvul. In other words, the Er HaBligvul is transmitting bittul into the Er HaGvul, basically. That's what he says. So using the words of the Alter Rebbe Rashab, Achinu dezeh gufa she'er primi yirmer b'chol ha'elmas gam be'elmas b'yah v'yeh ben b'chinas ha'bitl zeh ha'ideh er she'b'chinas ein. This itself, that the er primi should radiate in the worlds, illuminate, even in b'yah, and there should be bitl, that comes the koyach of Ein Sof. Well, actually, here's where he brings the gradations. And the explanation for this is because, using words we've used, because a system can't change itself. In other words, the energy that's within existence is subject to the rules of existence. And the mere fact that we have an existence where we have Atzilus does not go into Biyah. Only a reflection of it does. The whole basis of the structure of existence is that there is diminishing, not revealing. So how could you suddenly have a revelation? How could you have a piercing of the gauges and the lever, the what do we call it? The valves and so on? That has to come from Er HaBligvul. That's briefly the way he puts it. And he said that's like the Chiddush of Matan Torah, because before Matan Torah, the Medrash says, this everyone knows from the Sichos, that there was a Gzeira. El Yainim did not come down. What was in heaven remained in heaven. What was on earth remained on earth. The twain shall not meet. The Matan Torah was a Chiddush, the Bittul HaGzera. So what does it mean? That Matan Torah you need to have an Er HaBligvul, because if we're subject to regular structure of existence, the Er HaBligvul is up there and the Er HaGvul is down here. Finite and infinite can't meet. Heaven and earth cannot kiss and marry. So for the marriage of heaven and earth requires an Er HaBligvul. And that's what comes by Matan Torah. To pierce the curtain, the veil, the wall between Atzilus and Biyah, between heaven and earth, or between the divine and existence. That's Matan Torah. Now to understand this comes chapter 130, which is where we're last chapter we learned. Here we have to understand, so what really is the difference between before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah? So now, this really begins to translate everything we've learned about Gvul and Bligvul is now being translated into history. Because till now, it was all conceptual. What's history? When we speak about the Ovis, the first book of Chumash Shmos, Bereshis, that's going to be Er HaGvul. And the four other books, after Yetzias Mitzrayim, Matan Torah is going to be Er HaBligvul. You can put it that way. So it's an interesting way to look at the whole history like that. In other words, when Adam and Chava began, and especially Avram, from the Ovis and on, it's really the Er HaGvul that they are bringing into the world. And Matan Torah brings in Er HaBligvul. So everything we learned till now, but Er HaGvul and Er HaBligvul is now being translated into before Matan Torah, Ovis and Matan Torah, which is like two. Matan Torah, of course, a watershed moment. Everything changes. Now, they're not even talking about Mashiach's times yet. We're talking
now.
They
were punished, they didn't have the Evil, and it was banished into Matan Torah.
No, they had a taste of it, but it didn't stay. And then it wasn't ultimate. It was Ikar Shechina B'Tachteinu Maisa. We learned about it. Then in the beginning, you had a presence of the divine. I wouldn't know if it's called Er HaBligvul Mamash. I would say it's definitely a taste of it, but I don't know if it's Er HaBligvul. You could say it's the full Er HaGvul for sure.
Why can't you say that?
Because it was a tzimtzum and there was no real avodah. Well, it's still subject. The world, when Adam and Chava and Gan Eden, even before the Chet, was a world the way God created. So it's pristine and pure snow, but it's a world that God created. So it's subject. There's Atzila, there's Bri, Yitzira, Asiya. There's no Ein Sof Malakol Ametzias. I'm going to say that in a minute. That's a whole discussion now. Yeah. 1 second. But that's not what they're asking. They're asking before the Chet Eitzadas. Before Chet Eitzadas is basically the world the way God wants it to be, and Adam and Chava had the ability to recognize God within existence. I would say it's Er HaGvul primarily. I mean, there's always Er HaBligvul present, but there's no real Er HaBligvul, as we shall learn, number one comes through work, and number two, it comes through breaking darkness. It's like tshuva to really get the Er HaBligvul. Remember, God. Ein Sof was filled all of existence. Then God made a tzimtzum, a kav. The world can be a perfect world without Er HaBligvul. It's a world the way God meant it to be, like the world of nature right now. Without human beings intervening, the world of nature follows God's rules. That was the Gan Eden. Now, had Adam and Chava, L'Avdil L'Shamar, done their work properly, obviously they would have brought down more. Before Adam and Chava, what was the world like? Think of it that way. It was a perfect world. Elu tells us of Shemayim v'Aretz v'Yibaram. So it's the perfection. He spoke about it back in chapter before Yaakov. Where was it? Kuf, whatever.
It couldn't be so perfect.
It was a perfect world in the natural world. What means l'sakin? L'sakin doesn't mean broken. L'sakin repair. It makes improve. Right. Love l'sham doesn't mean broken. There was nothing missing in the world. But through their work, they would have brought it. They would have brought Mashiach had they done what they had to do through their efforts. Then comes, of course, the darkness. So not only didn't they do what they had to do, they fed into the concealment, and the concealment started building. And Avram begins the journey of bringing back Er. What Er? The Er HaGvul, as we're going to learn. Elikus. Gvul is Elikus too. Godliness, as I said. If everybody just recognized God in this world, forget about Bligvul, you'd also have a Mashiach-dik world, but that's a natural Mashiach-dik world. It's not the beyond. It's not transcendent. It's a world aligned to where God wants it to be. Like I said, nature. What's the problem?
That you need it.
They said it's a perfect world.
I don't say, the Medrash says, Elu tell the Shemayim v'Aretz b'Yibaram. Elu told us Moleh. Everything was b'shleimus.
Basically, there was a rapach netzutzis that they had to take care of. So it's not so perfect.
Where do you see that? It doesn't say anywhere. There was a perfect world, and you could always make it better. You could reconnect, whatever.
Where do you see that? We know that there was a la'avdal l'shamar.
I don't know. That's what you asked me. No, la'avdal l'shamar doesn't have to be tev and ra. La'avdal l'shamar doesn't mean tev and ra.
But wasn't the shvius hakelim before that?
What does shvius hakelim mean, Taka? Tell me, what does shvius hakelim mean? If they had not eaten from the tree of knowledge, what would have happened to shvius hakelim? Do you know?
I'm asking you. Tayu came before Tikkun.
Tayu is not a bad world. Tayu is breaking of containers is not bad. What happens bad, evil only comes in this earth is evil. You ask me a question, it's not like it's fine. I'm more than happy to answer it. Shviras HaKelim it was not done by human beings. Shviras HaKelim is a result of God's system. No one did Shviras HaKelim.
Testing the order of. You said that yesterday. It was for testing.
Once there's a tzimtzum, God conceals His energy. There's going to be an imbalance between energies and containers. So Toyu itself is not a bad thing. It just happens to be a shattering. It's a shattering.
That was after the faith.
No, it wasn't.
Before the faith.
Well, it happens all the time. There's no before and after.
So you're saying there wouldn't have to be any birur, and it's
What do you mean? It's the first pasuk in Chumash.
Before Adam.
The second pasuk in Chumash. There was no one created yet.
So you're saying that the birur and sisters wouldn't have happened. It was just there. It would be there. That's it. It wouldn't be like.
No. But if they had L'Avdul Shaman and did not eaten from the tree, that would have been their bitter. Who says bitter is evil and good? Where are you getting this concept? This is your concept.
No, I'm not saying evil. I didn't say the word evil or bad.
So you have a good world here. Let's take the Medrash, the famous Medrash. Boy v'nishtach v'nichra. Yeah, Adam and Chava were not created yet. It's 5 days of creation. Animals, everything is there. Like the Gemara says, the table has been set. Now comes a special guest. Adam and Eve are created. They're brought to the table. The table is a beautiful table. Nothing missing. The only thing that's missing is no one's recognizing and saying, "Where's our God?" But they're all following God's rules. No animal can waver from God's rule. No sun and moon would waver. But you don't have a relationship with God. Comes Adam and Chava, were given free will, and they're B'Tselem Elokim. They introduced not just God's creatures. This is a clock. They saw a clock of God's. They said, now we're going to connect you to the clock maker. Here's the divine creator that put it all here, and that's all Rosh Hashanah come together. That is what Adam and Chava did, but they also made a big mistake. They fed into, because the world was also after the Tzimtzum, and there was concealment, they had the ability, like the serpent, to be tempted. And that's where the problems began. So what would have happened had they not eaten from the tree? They would have brought Mashiach. Because their few hours of their work, they would have done all the work that we've been doing next last 5,000 years. They would have elevated through their mitzvah, through Aveda. The Avdil Sham is Ramach mitzvah says Shasam mitzvah says. In Teda Ed he says it would have been like a big torch that would have gathered all the sparks instead of having to go after them. So of course there would be elevation. That's why it says there's no question. The point I'm making here is that, but then came the concealment, then came all the concealments, and Avram begins the Aveda. What's the Aveda now? That's what he's going to discuss now. So till now we talked about Eir HaGvul, but now he's talking about it more. I would say it's almost more in a actualized way. Before it was conceptual. Now he's going to speak in an actualized way. And when he begins and says to understand the difference between Ovis and this, and what was the Chiddush? It says that Avram Hiskil Lahayir, that with Avram the began to radiate divine energy. Manas Chadash. What actually happened by Matan Torah that Adam and that Avram did not accomplish? She begins with the pasuk. The pasuk beferish pasuk be'el al Avram al Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, and says bekel Shaddai v'shmi Havaya l'nedaiti lehem. So the question is, don't we see Havaya exists also before Matan Torah? You have a number of places where you see Vayera love Havaya. You have the word Hashem.
In the relationship.
So he answers that you have to say that all the places that says Hashem is all that is through Kel Shaddai. Page Kuf. I'm just summarizing chapter Kuf Lamed, page Reish Nun Aleph. Like we see by Mitzvah Milah, it says Ani Kel Shaddai, Isalach Lefane. So we have to understand what this name Shaddai is. Some people tell me I have to say Shakai. I heard the Rebbe say Shaddai, by the way, more than once. So I'm not sure. This is a halacha. You said, right?
I said that you have to say it, but because I thought, but I can't tell you where the source is, but I've definitely learned that you say Shakai.
You learned that you say Shakai with a kuf?
Not say kuf, it means like Elokim. You could say Shazai.
Yeah.
Right?
Shin Daled Yud.
Yeah, Shin Daled Yud. You could also say Shin Daled Yud.
It's one of the 7 names.
But we say Tzivus Hashem, for example.
Yeah, who says you can't say this is someone names? You can't write. You can't.
Tzivus Hashem, you say.
You can't say them because
But
they
you don't say Hashem
You can't say them in a bathroom.
refer to
You
God.
don't
in that
say
sense.
Hashem Tzivus.
Just like if you're speaking about judges, you could say Elohim.
That's
If
in
you're speaking about
the-
judges, it's another word. So in Tzivus Hashem, it's not referring to God, it's referring to Israel. That's why I could say Tzivus Hashem.
Tzivus Hashem.
No, but the names, these names you cannot utter in a bathroom or in holy places. But it doesn't say you can't say them.
Right, which one? There's two different levels.
We know that Havaya you can't say, the Cuba can't say, but the other ones don't.
You say Shalom, but you can't say it in the bed.
We say Kale, we don't say Adnai. But Adnai, for example, we just changed its pronunciation. We don't say the other way. We say Adnai. Shem Adnai. Let's give it to see the Rabbi. I'm almost sure the Rabbi says it. Shindalad Yud.
Also Shindalad Yud.
Who?
Saying the Rebbe saying Shindalad.
Maybe.
I think like
I don't remember now. But anyway.
Anyway, so it's okay.
So another time, I'm summing it up orally. So it says like this.
Didn't do
What's the
anything.
first letter word on the line?
Shame, Eva, Chanuk.
If we do this, we're never going to go anywhere. So you answer. Give me your answer.
It says Mishem
Since a Kasha Ayin Beis, why the Ovis B'chlal such a big thing? Why don't you ask the same question on why the Ovis such a big thing? They were tzaddikim before the Ovis. I'm sure you can come up with one or two answers. Right?
Yeah, where did they
It's a Kasha in the Chumash.
Where did they get such?
Why Dafka Avram mitamo? And Noach was not a big man. Shame.
Where did they get such bitzel if they didn't have the transactions?
Anyway, so here we go. So to understand Kel Shaddai, he says like this. It's going to be several interpretations, but he's starting out with the interpretation of Shaddai means from the Gemara Chagiga and Medrash Rabbah. It's very important. Anihu shamati la'lamidai. That I, that said, was the one that said to the world, enough. So Shaddai comes from the word dai. Shaddai. Okay, Sha'amar dai or Shaddai. So dai, like dayenu, enough. Shiluli shamarti dai, had I not said dai enough, ad ato hayim tachim, till this day, till now, they would still be expanding universe. You read one book on Einstein and you go crazy.
I've been reading 10 books.
It says
So if you look at the Maimonim where this is rooted, it discusses it at length. He's going to talk about it too.
What is the exact translation of that word?
Basically, the answer is that the Kreich HaGvul, without the Kreich HaGvul, Sandal would not be able to stop it. And the Kreich HaGvul itself is still a Likus. Yeah. So you need both.
He's just the one who's 56.
Yeah, it's like if you didn't weaken the energy, a wall wouldn't stop it. Once you weaken it, then comes a wall and blocks it. That's why you need a parsa. Sandal's like the parsa, is like yeah, that's what he says. But that's good that you brought it up because I'm glad that I was looking for it actually. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Moshe, what did you say?
No, because in chapter 106, he says that it's the Malach Sandal who tells the world to stop.
Alexander?
It's from the Maimer. It's from the Maimer Kinalayich, right? In the Likutei Torah, right? Mayofa Nalayich. All the Maimorim bring it. The Reb Marash. This chapter is based on the Reb it's like what would be a shoe without a foot?
Right.
But the shoe without the foot without the first you need the foot to become a foot, and then the shoe blocks it from. You need both. Bottom line is you need both. But it's good that you brought it up. I was looking for it actually this morning because I knew that we'd learned it, and it's mamish directly connected.
Which one?
Yeah. No, I know it. I knew it. As I said when I was learning this. Okay. So let's continue here. So now he asks a question. The question is, the world is a gvul, is a limited, finite world. So how could you even have a consideration that it would extend forever? Gvul cannot go bli gvul. A finite world cannot expand forever. So he says, so he answers. The answer is the problem is not with the universe. The question is of the energy, the divine energy, the finite energy. We're going to learn here what? I mean, the finite energy is what he's talking about. So he brings from Shayachat Valmuna. That the whole energy that sustains existence is the divine energy within. Now there's a divine energy that manifests in the heavens and in earth, in the finite creatures. That's what we're talking about. So that can be Ispashtas Adin Shir, because it's divine energy. We're not talking about the heaven itself, the physical heaven. We're talking about the divine energy, and the divine energy extends forever. That's the question. That's what he says. And then Taka, if that happened, the Yesh could never be a Metzias Yesh. You could make the argument that if the divine energy, that's finite energy, extends, then the heavens would actually extend also. Because why not? It's just an extension, it's just divine energy. But it answers the question, because a material world on its own cannot extend, that's clear. Because something of finite reality cannot be forever, cannot last forever. And to explain this, he goes deeper into an explanation of Shai Yichud V'Amunah. And the explanation goes like this. Shai Yichud V'Amunah he speaks about in chapter 4, as he says. What I just said is so the answer is, Shaddai, what it does is die. It's God himself saying to his own energy, do not flow forever. Genug, right, enough. Rabbi Lovett, in the Shara Kel, he asked the question, why we say Adkan HaKofa Aleph? Because HaKofa is Makif, Bligvul. So you need an Adkan to tell die, stop it. So we say die. Yeah, the Rebbe, remember when they sang Ad Moshe for an hour and a half by the Fabrengen? And then the Rebbe finally stopped it, he said that, I think, Adkan HaKofa Aleph or something. I mean, that went on and on. It was Ad Moshe, and then the Rebbe said Dayenu. Were you there? That was unbelievable. We thought it was never going to end. An hour and a half. Why the Rebbe stopped it after an hour and a half? I guess there comes a point.
One of the highest times I was ever in 770. I couldn't mind.
Okay. She explains this Shai Yichud V'Amunah like this in Perek Daled. We talk about the Eibishter Hagadol V'Hagibur. You say Hagadol V'Hagibur. She says the Eibishter is Hagadol, the great one, and Hagibur, the powerful one. She explains the Isavas and B'chinas HaChesed, because Isavas comes from Gedula, Chesed. Chesed is the virtue, the attribute of extension. Love fundamentally is about extending yourself. Now, Midas HaChesed is Pashtus HaChayes. Because God is a Gadol, He has Chesed within Him, so He extends. But it's Le'en Keitz V'Tachlis. On its own, where would it stop? God is infinite, so His Chesed is infinite. So it's a Gili that would just continue on, and how does it have the power to continue on and on? Because it's not its own, it's Oyer. It's a Gili and Oyer is Davik to the source. So just like the source is continuing to flow, it will continue to flow. And he says, and the way that would happen, besides that it would continue to flow endlessly, the world would never become a Yesha Metzias, because it would all be energy. You'd see divine energy that's flowing. It's revealed divine energy. And they would sense that they're only a reflection of their source. That's what he says in Shai Yichud V'Amunah. That's why you need to have, as he explains it, tzimtzum, a helam. You have to conceal this energy. That's what he says, it would extend without end, because Eirach Chesed would not become thickened, it would not in any way become crasser, then retain its purity. Then he says Midas HaGvura is the tzimtzum. What's Gvura? That God is a Gibur. That just like God can extend endlessly, He could also withhold. Could also restrain and refrain the flow. And that's Gvura. This also means He could conceal. And that allows the Nivra, first of all, allows it to die. It causes the flow to stop, so therefore you have a finite existence. It doesn't extend forever. And two, it also conceals it so that the existence doesn't sense that it's energy. So we're a reality. Matter does not sense that it's truly divine energy, when it really is just divine energy.
That can only come from Matzos.
Yeah. Okay. So according to this, we can understand when it says "Elam may die," ain't a kavan elam. He's not talking about the world itself. He's telling the world, stop, genug, die, enough. Because the physical world can be blugul. Kavan is ala kis. He's telling the deflection, the chesed, that's reflection called energy. He's telling it Damar Dai Li B'chinas HaGabala. It should flow with parameters, with a measure. So what we're seeing here is everything we learned before. Koyach HaGvul is Shem Shaddai, the name that captures in the names of God what is God's power of Gvul to restrain or slow down or stop that energy. That's called Shaddai. Havaya is Chesed. Havaya is the flow. I don't know if we'll call it Chesed, but let's say Havaya is the flow that just continues to flow. And Shaddai is the name that says Dai, La'elamai Dai. But what is La'elamai? It doesn't mean the world, it means the energy that sustains the world. Basically, it's saying that Lifnei Tzimtzum, in Sher Shoshen, the deep in Lifnei Tzimtzum, where the Eir Ein Sof is Bli Gvul. There's in the root of it already is a name Shad Shin Daled Yud that says Dai, and that's the Gvul that's saying only manifest in 10 spheres and not in more. That's what Shaddai is. Then he says, B'shara Shoshe, what is the same Shaddai? That's the Tzimtzum Harishon. In the root of roots, actually what I just said is not correct. Because he said the root of roots is the Tzimtzum, not before the Tzimtzum. I said that is the energy that stops the Gvul energy to become Gvul energy. No, he says the root of roots is the Tzimtzum Harishon. So I correct myself. The root of the root Shaddai is Tzimtzum Harishon, Shei Be'ein Sof. Because in the beginning, what you have, Malak Kol HaMetzias. Ein Sof was like Chesed that no one told it to stop. Hagadol, God's Gdula, God's greatness is manifesting. Manifests everything that is there. But yet the Tzimtzum came that it shouldn't extend and be revealed, and it should all be encompassed within the source. And the only thing that should remain is a Rishimu. Rishimu is a residue or impression of the letters, which originated before the Tzimtzum. In God's mind, He wanted to have spheres, so that remains. And that would become the root for the creation of Baal Gvul. The reason he adds Rishimu here, because it's really Tzimtzum and Rishimu that really creates Gvul. Tzimtzum is a concealer, but it's the letters that actually will ultimately shape existence. So think of a person who envisions in his mind an idea. The idea has letters, but the idea overwhelms the letters because there's no room for any expression. It's just pure energy. So then comes the Koyach HaTzimtzum, which is the Shin Daled Yud, and he conceals the energy, the ideas, and now the letters remain, and this will become the root of the containers. And that's the purpose of this name. That's in the root of roots. Now, in the world of Atzilus, Hu in Yemir Ta'er V'Ribe HaKelim. What is it in the world of Atzilus? This name, the name as it evolves, the name Shaddai. What is it in the lower worlds? So he says that's the world of Tikkun. Because in Toyu you had too much energy, too little containers, and therefore there could not have been a true balance. In Tikkun you have a diminished energy and you have expanded containers, and through that they are sustained. And that's Shem Shaddai. Shaddai is the monitor. It's the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper that regulates the regulator. It regulates the flow. It regulates the flow, right. So it says Shem Shaddai Batzil B'chinas Mirter B'Ifresh B'chinas Islapshus B'Kelim. So it regulates that the flow should be exactly right and commensurate to the containers. And the containers, okay. And then they can benefit from this energy. And this is why Tikkun is called Lavush. What's Lavush? Lavush means to what we call it to adorn, to improve, to beautify. So true adornments, what do? Their role is not to create something new, some block. They're meant to enhance the reality that exists. And that's what Tikkun is, Hakelim, Yalbishus Eir. So they dress up and enclose, the energy is enclosed in them to the point that they become beneficial. If the energy would just flow and the containers would be shattered, or the containers would not contain them, you would not have a beneficial structure. It wouldn't benefit. And now we go back to the Avos. And this is what the Avos was zeicher to. The Avos, that's what means Ve'era B'Kel Shaddai. So what does it mean when we say Ve'era B'Kel Shaddai? That Ve'era, I revealed myself to them, to the Avos, in the name of Shaddai. So he's going to say, this is the power that the Avos had, that Avram, Hiskul B'chinas HaTikun, V'hu B'chinas HaKelim She'ishlabish B'me'er. From Avram began the world of Tikkun. Because till then, as he says, the Gemara says, "Washnei alofim tayu." 2,000 years of tayu. Tayu means chaos. So until Avram, it's a little after Avram, but basically Avram begins.
It was 48.
Yeah, because he was born in 1948. So
Beis alofim.
the first, the Gemara says, the first 2,000 are tayu, because it was a destruction. The Mabel dominated and all this corruption. Avram began to bring the repair.
1948?
Yeah.
Creation of Israel. After the war.
Okay.
After the Holocaust.
So what's tikkun? Tikkun is the name Shaddai. That's what it is. Tikkun means, before, like you could say the Mabel itself, for example, of flooding waters that destroy the world. Even though it's water, it destroys. The energies flowed them. Sometimes it says that the first generations, they lived so long because it was Eretz without Kalim. So they lived long because they had a lot of air but no Kalim to contain it.
So how were they discrete entities? How was their creation?
Oh, it's all relative. It doesn't mean completely. It wasn't like Lifnei Tzimtzum. We're not talking about before the Tzimtzum.
But that Indian of Shaddai.
Shaddai is balanced.
Didn't that have to exist before in the first 2,000 years?
Yes, as far as purely as pure creatures like Dem Tzemei Chaim Medaber, that But I would say, practically speaking, Shaddai is a revelation of the divine. It's a divine regulator that makes sure the energy in the containers are balanced. It may not be Elokim. Elokim may be the real, pure concealer. It doesn't say that right here, but that's what's one way you can explain it. And then even in Shaddai, you can say there are different levels. Clearly, when you say the question is going to be asked. You say Bekel Shaddai, and what was before that? But he's explaining the pasuk. The pasuk definitely says the Ovis had something special. Because that pasuk is saying something special. It's not Shmi Havaya, Leinadaiti, but still, he did appear to them. So he's explaining now. We talk so much about Bli Gvul, we forget that Eir Gvul of Elokus is a pretty nice level to have. We'd have basically a perfect world if we had it. We just wouldn't have a world that is beyond perfect, beyond human perfection. So he says like this. So then he says, okay. And this is what it says in Eitz Chaim Shara Akudim. That the beginning in Akudim, it says it's already the level of Avram begins in Akudim, because Akudim is the beginning of containers. And Avram is Begimate Rachim, V'Akelim Tachlis HaRachim. So that's another additional point. And this is.
That's it. That was over somebody's rocking. That's a little confusing.
It's not Rachmin v'Chesed. It says Rachmin v'Chesed. Rachim and Chesed sometimes are combined. It says Rachim Akelim Tachlis HaRachim v'Chesed.
Because in the bottom he says Hafish Chesed Rachim.
Fine, but here he says it together. It's fine. It's not a contradiction. Sometimes they're included in one. Sometimes they're separate.
Yeah, but Midas and Chesed says we don't need Midas and Chesed, which we have Abraham. That was a classic.
So what do you think? So do you think it contradicts that Avraham is Gematria Rachim? The answer is that encompasses both. And then when you break it down further, there's two levels. Right? There's Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, but
so basically this name,
Malza
Shidal Yud, this is the Oradvu.
he says it's a Sherish, it's a Tzimtzum addition, and the Kalim. Doesn't say Eragvul so far. I just corrected myself. I thought so too in the beginning, but I think right now it's definitely Tzimtzum and Kalim more than anything. The Sherish HaKalim.
Maybe Akim.
He doesn't say yet. There's a whole Ayin Beis. I'm sure there's going to be discussed. Probably not. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's overlap. It's probably many explanations, but I would take it step by step because there's a lot of steps here. So this is Ve'era Avram Bekel Shadesh Adei Shem Shadesh Amar Le'Lam Edai Aydezeh Ve'era Avram. This is interesting touch. Usually you say, and God revealed Himself with the name Shaddai. He's saying through the name Shaddai, that's how He revealed Himself. So in other words, why did Avram have revelation? Because there was a regulator.
Oh yeah, but he revealed himself.
Had you not had Kel Shaddai, he could not have revealed himself to Avram without overwhelming. Because what's Avram, as he's going to explain, this is a piece, that's why I'm reviewing it, because we learned this already, but it's you need to really go through slowly. As a matter of fact, I was going to even read from Tafshin Gimel. Friedrich Rebbe quotes these Mamorim with elaborate additions. And I learned that I can understand this better pshat here, because it's very dense in some ways. To really go back to the source for all this material. All this is rooted, just by the way, originates from a maimon from the Rebbe, Alter Rebbe. It said, Tzabras Pasha Ve'era, Tov Kuf Samach. That would be 5 years before his Istalkus. That would mean 205 years ago. Okay? So he said the maimon Vayitzavim, it's called Vayitzavim, Tov Kuf Samach. And we have a Hanacha from it, the Rebbe, Mittler Rebbe wrote it up, and the Tzemach Tzedek added additions to it. And this is based literally almost word for word from there with some additions.
You find it in Samachas?
You used to find it in Eira Teira. Yeah, Eira Teira Ve'era. Actually, not this volume. I have it upstairs, I think. Yeah, this one. In Tavka Samaches, it will say, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, they're scattered. They're not all in one place. There's a index there on the Maimorim that'll tell you it's here. Now, because to understand this, you really got to go back there. There's a lot of, and then the Rebbe Friedrich Rebbe in Tafshin Gimel in America already cites this whole thing literally word for word with additions, and you can add all kinds of nuances. The Hemshech Shavuos Tafshin Gimel, Tat Anochi. It's a series of, I think, 5-6 Maimorim. Yeah, goes all the way through to Balescha, I think, the end of Balescha. Riva Shlach. Yeah, all the way to. That. So anyway, so he's saying like this now. So what he's saying, the Taitch is Ve'el Avram, because Ayadei Shem Shalish Amalei Lomedai Ayadei Zeve Ve'el Avram B'chinas Chesed Ava'ava.
That itself is kind of built in.
No, it's a different taich than you would say usually. You'd say God, because you see when you read the pasuk, you right away focus what they didn't get. He's saying to Moshe, I revealed myself to them, Bekel Shaddai. V'shmei Havaya, I did not reveal them. So that right away we think, okay, they were nothing. God forbid. And here, now you're getting the real Havaya. So here he's going a whole, before we even get to Havaya, let's first understand, I revealed myself to them, Bekel Shaddai, that's a big achievement. What is the achievement? So he's saying, because it was Bekel Shaddai, that's why he was able to manifest. See, that's the key. In the kelim of chesed and ava. That's what it means. So it's not just, I revealed to them a higher level of a lower level of divine, to Moshe a higher level. I revealed to them a level, that level is what allowed me to reveal myself, be revealed within them. That's what's going on here. Because in order to have Ava and Chesed below, which is the level of Avram, you need Kelim.
The orderliness.
And the Kelim, that's one taich. Gam, Inyan ve'edel Avram, shenimshach b'ay memuchuz b'chinas klei Chesed Atzilus. Another interpretation. The ve'edel Avram means that in him was transmitted from the core essence of the klei Chesed of Atzilus. So what's the difference in the two interpretations? One is that through Kel Shaddai you have Chesed and Ava. Okay? The second is
Mimahus Klei Chesed Atzilus.
right, and they have Mimahus Klei Chesed. Why? Because the others were Merkava. They were a chariot. They were completely bottled. This is literally the language from Vayitzavim Samach Ufkuf Samachas. Until they became a total Merkava chariot for Chesed Atzilus. And from the middle of Chesed Nimshum B'chinas Pnimis HaKeli HaChesed. This again is the language from there. That's what I went to look up the sources, because it's, what does it mean? But anyway, it's coming from the inner container to literally manifest in the neshama of Avram that radiate in his body. Okay. Now the next piece is also all from there. So let me just read it I'm just going to sum it up rather, and I would rather read it from Tafshin Gimel, because here he adds things that make this understandable. That's the key thing I wanted to go over. So here's what he says now. Remember the Eitz Chaim I mentioned, which as I said, I think this Eitz Chaim is a fundamental core of foundation of Ayin Beis. So the Eitz Chaim is a very famous one, in many ways.
How did you find it, Tafshin Gimel?
Maybe that will take that.
How would you find the Gemara that you remember, but you don't know where it is exactly, or you don't even remember?
Okay.
Huh?
It's a good answer.
It's called this art of learning. You know, one thing leads to the next. I always knew Tafshin Gimel and Ayin Beis, but first of all, I wasn't born with that knowledge, but I had learned them both, so I knew they were connected. That's number one. Number two, when you know your stuff, you get your way around. Sometimes you miss things. I'm sure there are things there in my mind that would help understand all of this, but it takes a lot of work. It's basically some detective work at times.
Like Google.
Google helps nothing with this. Trust me. Because it's...
The Shama is not swallowed. They put it in swallowed up. The Shurim they put him on canvas.
I'm going to take care of that.
Out of Alaska.
When he finds it, puts it on.
I help them. They come to me from Army camps.
Is it for them or it's after Mitzvah?
Oh, no, but that's not Tzvacham. I saw that. They don't... Nah. He out of asking for Kohos is making concentration. But he comes to me. He just came to me because so his Marmakim is there. I have researched most of the Maimorim. I'm finding them. There's always you find a little more.
You saw it's already Chelik Beis that happened until here.
I saw volume 1. I know he's doing. I know this.
Doesn't have his name in it.
What is this?
I don't know how valuable it is. If someone helps them, Gesundheit.
What's the name?
I'll give you an example. I found this Maimer here, just for the record. I found this Maimer actually in Tafresh Pei. And Tafresh Pei, he says like this. V'zein Yishem Shadish Ubchinas Tzimtzum Arishon K'mo Shekosel Ba'abir Deve'era B'Sefer Tafresh U'Ba'abir Deve'itzav Tavkov Tavkov Samaches U'Ba'Hagos L'Sham Ba'Kitzah Deve'era B'Sefer Baruch Ata. Now I happen to know this because I've worked on this, so I know when I see this what this is. Actually, I didn't find it from here. I actually found it a different way.
It doesn't say Tafshin Gimel.
No, Tafshin Gimel is easier to find than the earlier ones because Tafshin Gimel we learned. I learned in Yeshiva Tafshin Gimel. This stuff we didn't learn in Yeshiva. Al Tadev's Mamar nobody learns. Tzemach Tzedek is a key to a lot. Tzemach Tzedek Pashut literally traces all the Maimorim to Al Tadev, when he said it, how he said it, what year he said it. He compares year to year. It's a study. So here's a very fundamental piece now, that without really reading it slowly. So I went back to Eitz Chaim to read it. Eitz Chaim says like this, before I'm going to say what it says here. Eitz Chaim that talks all about interfaces. And he says that everything breaks into 4. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai Yechidim. But Chai Yechid is considered one because it's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and Neshama l'Neshama. And that breaks into another 2. Fine. And he says the same thing is in everything in existence breaks into 4. He says we have a Neshama that's made up of, that we have a Neshama. The Neshama is inside of a body. The body gets dressed in garments. And all of that resides inside of a shelter in the home. So the 4 levels right there. Neshama, beguf, belevushim, bebayis. Then he goes on and says, all these 4 levels, each have 4 levels. The Neshama is made up of Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, Chaya. Chid is not counted or it's included in Chaya for this. The body, he says, is Pasuk says, Eir Basar, what's the Lashon? Eir Basar, Gidim, Vatzomis. So flesh, Eir is skin, Basar is but skin and flesh, it's not the same thing. And Gidim Atzomas, Gidim is like nerves, and tendons, limbs, and so on. And Atzomas are bones. Then comes garments. There are 4 types of garments, the 4 garments of the Kohen. The Kohen Gadol's garments are additional, not the regular. The 4 are the... Yeah, well the 4 are a shirt, a pants, a gartel, and... Right, and a hat. And in the Beis, he says there's four types of
There's a brownstone, there's a mansion.
No, what does he say? Four botim. You know, he brings there, very interesting. He brings there with oyalim. Four types of the houses. Daled botim.
Yeah, you're right. It could be Ayel, but then that's one. Then
Yeah, no. He says Ir Sada Bayis Midbar. Yeah, that's it.
it's where the shelter is. It could be
Yeah. You also Daled Rishuyas.
What was it? Airside of Beis?
Bayis Midbar. It's four essentially four geographical. Then he goes further and says that each one is an interface that connects each one. There's a bias that can be made out of wood and stone, but there's this Eitz Chaim Shar Mem Aleph. The one he's quoting right now. I'm saying it for a reason because I want to give you the context. So I'm reading here. Then he says botim. They have houses made out of the same thing garments are made of. Tzemer and pishtim. You have botim made out of houses made out of material, linen and so on.
tents,
Yeah, tents. Then he says, and then their clothing is made out, we have in the body teeth and hair, which are similar, have an element that's similar to material. In other words, so in the body you have something that's similar to garments, which are made out of like, he brings it from Adam in the Nebuchadnezzar had, where their clothing was super nice. They were covered by nails, but also hair. You can make garments out of hair. And then he says the interface between the body and the soul is the dam, the blood, dam hu nefesh. So you have an interface between the adkidim atzamas and the erva basan. And what's the interface between body and soul? What's that body and soul? I said dam. I'm sorry. Between now soul and God. That's where he goes next. That's yechida. So you have nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya. That's the Nitzitz. Exactly. That's the context there. Pretty amazing, huh? In other words, everything is four levels, and everything connects, interface to the next. Then the body, the soul, and the soul is the four nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya. Those, as he says, is chochma, bina, midas, and malchus. That's what he says there. And yechida is. And that's what we're going to read. I'll read it inside now. But the interesting thing he says, before he says this mamutza of Yechida, he begins with the avos. He says, and the avos are the mamutza between Elikus and this world. Because he says, avos hein hen markava, and bonim atam la'Hashem alekechem. See what's going on here? So you have, in Medaber, in the human being itself, and in this context, he brings the interfaces in. He says a similar thing in the interfaces in Dem Tzemei Chaim Medaber too. The coral. This is in Eitz Chaim. The coral is the interface between mineral and vegetable. Adnei Hasada, like creatures that grow, is the interface between vegetable and animal. Huh? Adnei. There's Adnei Sada. That's another thing, but there's Adnei Sada. There's also Adnei Sada. And then you have the monkey, says the mamutza, the interface between man and the animal. So what's the interface between man and God? He says that's the avos. And that's the bonim atmasham, that do the children. Yeah, why not? Now, bonim atmasham, that's the interface between and man. The avos. Basically, the chid, he's going to say. So basically now,
type of animal is generated spontaneously from the dirt.
Not from the dirt. In the Mishnah, there says there's creatures that grow, and when you cut them, they cry. They're actual animals that are attached to the earth. It's like plants that are animals.
Oh, you mean
an animal that is like a plant.
Oh, you mean plants that like respond to classical music or things like that?
No. He's actual life, like an animal that doesn't move around. It grows from the ground.
Do we see it? Was there an example of that?
I don't know. It's in the Gemara. It's in the Mishnah.
I understand, but we point to the
detached? Does it move around?
Attached.
It's attached.
Yeah.
What's an example of it?
Siach Hasada there is, and there's Adnei Hasada.
Which Siach?
It's two different names, but there he uses, I think, Adnei Hasada, if I recall correctly. I could show it to you in the Mishnah, in Klayim. It's a Mishnah in Klayim. Yeah, I don't know if there is today, but there are svarim that talk about things that the Gemara times if they exist today or not.
Between man and
But they're not generated from the dirt.
between man and
No, I'm not talking about that.
between man
It's like a plant, but it's an animal. It's a cross between animal and a plant, and between a creature and a plant. Like coral. Coral is not just more coral grow, but they're mineral.
Mineral between that and corals.
Right.
mermaids is
We don't
between
have an
man
example.
And Martians.
Like what?
I know. There's that sefer from that Swedish guy. What's his name? He was here. The Rebbe spoke about it. Yeah. He has all these weird things. I know. A guy with two heads.
It's a very interesting sefer.
A chazan that's kosher. Yeah. Okay, so here it goes like this. So here now I'm going to read the Eitz Chaim. I just gave you the introduction. So basically, to understand the Ovis, he says, so Eitz Chaim Sharma Malach Peirik Gimel, but Pirush HaOvis Heina Merkava, he says like this. To explain the Ovis are Merkava, because the Ovis, in other words, are not just, they're humans that are aligned with the divine. So he's going to explain this is the name Shaddai. But how does he explain it? Because it's a real interface. He says like this. This is the Lashon of the Eitz Chaim. Because there is a very small spark. This is actual language of Eitz Chaim. There's a very small spark, which is B'chinas Alakus. It's a divine dimension. This is Eitz Chaim. Shar Mem Aleph Peirik Gimel.
Reading now from the Eitz Chaim?
The Eitz Chaim is quoted in Ayin Beis. Shahu B'chinas Alakus Nimshech B'madrega Mimadrega Achreinu Shebebeira. This small spark that's divine, where does it come from? It comes from the lowest level of the Beira, of the Creator. V'zeh hanitzutz, and this spark, mislapish b'keich nitzutz echad nivra, manifests in another spark which is a nivra. So a spark, like think of the divine as a big flame. A spark, the lowest part of the flame of the divine source, manifests in a spark that becomes nitzutz nivra. And that's a very subtle, very, very subtle neshama. This nivra, this spark, hanikri yechida, that's called yechida. Yesh bashar shedalat b'chinas haruchnius naran chai. Right. When I meant chai, nefesh ruch neshama chaya. Narach. So this yechida is the root of the four levels of the soul that will emerge from it. Remember we said before, like the blood is the interface between the body and the soul. So this yechida is the interface between the divine and the parts of the soul that will manifest inside the human being. That's why it's called yechida. It's a uniqueness, a oneness, a singularity. A singularity. This is all language of this. V'hainu. That means that the neshama, which is the four levels of nefesh, ruach, neshama, that what are they? The shein dal b'chinas chachma bina v'zun, zah and malchus, zah and nukva. So we have chachma is chaya here, bina is neshama, zah midas is ruach, and nukva malchus is nefesh. Now the Rebbe Rashab is adding something that does not say another Maimorim, interestingly, but it adds spice. Because according to this, chaya is still a pnimi, because it's chachma. But in other places it says that chaya is a level of makif hakorev. But it's makif hakorev, like one we spoke about earlier. Remember the makif that speaks to the faculties. Sheyesh la'achiz b'pnimis, it has already a grasp. The pnimis has already a grasp in it. Shnachiza, some type of, it's already touching the pnimis, the inner. But then he continues. V'chola giluim de naran, heima makiv de chaya. And all these revelations of Nefesh L'Shah, they come from the makiv of chaya.
Is this Eitz Chaim?
No. Sorry. No. The Al-Shem is nikra mazel, Al-Shem shenezel v'netiv b'neshama shebeguf. That this level is called mazel of the neshama. Why? Because mazel comes from the word dripping. What do we say? Dripping and flowing? And trickling. Dripping and trickling in the neshama shebeguf. So we have here like this. We have, according to this interpretation, arich rather, is the chaya, it's a makif, and then you have the neshama as it manifests and drips into the body. So you have your sparks from sparks. You have Yechida is a spark from the divine source, right? Yechida becomes the spark that connects to Chaya, which in turn becomes the mazel from which drips the other levels of the soul. You see here what's going on here? So if you want to have a X-ray of your soul, it looks like this. You have the soul that manifests in your body. So you have in your mind, in your mind is neshama. In your heart, emotions is ruach. In your so-called lower parts of your body, or I guess the lower faculties is nefesh. That comes from mazel of the neshama. That's chaya, which has a relationship with us, but it's still makif. And that in turn comes from yechida, which is a nitzutz nivra, a spark of created spark that is connected to the divine spark, which is the lowest part of the Beira itself.
Is that the blood?
No. The blood was an example between body and soul. We're not talking about body now. We're talking about soul and divine.
It's in our head, and then you said that it's in our ruach, it's in our heart.
I didn't say head. I meant chabad. Like you said, chokhmah, bina, the faculties. We're not talking about the physical.
Okay.
The faculties.
So Yechida is in the mitzvah between the soul and divine. Yechida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. And Yechida is the root for all these four. Hakalelas kulam compasses all them. Kedimian hiskalos chachman bina v'zun ba'arich ampin.
We've gone back now, right, to the first account.
Yeah. Because he says, because either way, whether it's a high level of arich or not, it basically comes down whether chaya is chachma or chaya is a lower level of arich. Regardless, yechida is always above all four. Basically, encompasses them all. This is very much connected to what we learned before in chapter 10, where was it, by the Kesser, where he said that the lowest levels of Kesser become the root of the Keiches Pnimiyim. Right. Remember that? We said Midas and Malchus of Kesser is the Ratzon that's connected to the immanent energy. That's very clearly connected to this. Now, 1 second now. Umavur be'etz Chaim. Now he goes back to Eitz Chaim. Sham shezo kedimian chemer hadishin sheposhen mekol tzurav hu anesa kol adalat tzuras. That this level of yechida is like a chemer hadishin. It's like what it says in some places that the whole world first started. Chemer hadishin was a raw piece of matter that has no shape and form, but it carries and contains in it all the four shapes and images that will come from it. So that would be yechida in that sense. Okay. Well, but b'chinas nitzud zeh, this on Eitz Chaim he says this. And now he says b'chinas nitzud zeh nikri yechida mislabash nitzud kodin shug alakus mamish. It goes back to the beginning. And in this spark, which is called yechida, which is the chemer rishon, which encompasses all lower levels, in it manifests the nitzud kodin of alakus, shulakus mamish. Al derech islapshus b'chinas atik ba'arich hampin. Like the manifestation of Atik in Arich Hampin. The Atik ubchinas tachtena shebe Ein Sof. Atik is the lowest dimension of Ein Sof. Mislabish barach shurei shemokar on Netzalim. And manifests in Arich, that's the head and the source of Netzalim. This is Eitz Chaim, by the way. This is exactly the language of Eitz Chaim. Okay. Now, that's it. That's the Eitz Chaim. And here is where we have to stop slowly and read very slowly. Because if you remember, he said before that Avram, Chesed of Avram, now goes back. What's the connection to the Avos? So in Eitz Chaim he doesn't spell it out. He just says that the Avos and Bonim Atam Hashem Elokeichem is the mamutza between the human and the divine. And then he goes this whole piece about Yechida. So you have to conclude that this Yechida is an example for the Avos. That means that they're a Merkava. Human beings are human beings. Being a Merkava means it's like Yechida is a Merkava for the divine. So the Avos are a Merkava for Elokus. He doesn't say that. No, it's like the Yechida. Like the Yechida. So the question, however, is Yechida is in a very, very high level. Where do the Avos fit in here? So he's going to say the Avos are an Atzilus. And this is critical that in a mimer called the Samti Kotked, Parsha A in Mekutei Torah, he explains here. Do you have a Bas Lagani? This year's Bas Lagani, actually.
Yeah, you had it over there.
Yeah. This year's Bas Lagani. It's on the piano. I just want to read one line from Basel Lagani because it's very relevant to what we're learning here. Yud Gimel. It may be not here downstairs. Okay, could be have it upstairs. Fine. Let me just tell you what it says there. So Sadi Kodgir, he says like this, that when it comes to the neshamas it says in places are rooted in Pnimis HaKelim. How does this fit into this Eitz Chaim? The Eitz Chaim says the neshamas are rooted in Arich. In Arich in turn is a keli for Atik. I'm sorry, for Yechaya. Chaya is a keli for Yechida. And Yechida is like the Arich, upon which rests Atik, which is the Tachtein Shebebeira. That's what he said here. But when he says clearly in that Maimer that how you compare it to the Ovis is because the Ovis are the Kelim of Atzilus, which are the similar to Adrega. Kelim of Atzilus is like Yechida. That's the key line that has to be added here. So that's why he now continues. Same thing. The nitzutz cotton who alakus mamish b'chinas hakelim that's shein alakus mamish liver behen v'al yodam. So now what we spoke about before as being the divine spark that manifests and encloses itself in Yechida, this is actually the kelim of Atzilus. Now I know you consider kelim of Atzilus a very low level, but you have to remember the kelim of Atzilus in the Geras HaKodesh, she says that through the kelim is how God creates. Through the kelim, that's what he's going to bring the lashon now. The kelim of Atzilus are elakus mamish. So you'll say, one second, is the Eitz Chaim talking about the kelim of Atzilus, or is it talking about Lifnei HaTzimtzum? Well, we've gotten spoiled. I must tell you, we talk about Lifnei HaTzimtzum so often that we think that anything below that is like not in our. It's a different, it's not
change.
Right. Small change. The truth is, real Chassidim didn't talk about Lifnei HaTzimtzum until the last days of their lives, because it was beyond them. They spoke in the levels that were more where they, like I said many times, figure out a Siyar Ruchnius before we have plenty problems with going from Chumrius to Gashmius, let alone from Gashmius to Ruchnius, let alone. But we talk about Lifnei HaTzimtzum, we've been spoiled, as I said, we've been given all these ideas. Yeah. So, but if you really want to understand it, El Atzilus is a world of Elokus. It says in the beginning of Ayin Beis that the Alter Rebbe, we say the word Eberster, right?
Yeah.
Eberster. What does Eberster mean? Do you know? It means Elyon. He's above. Eberster, the one above. So he says, say, an Atzilus he would call Eberster. Atzilus is Eberster. So we say the Eberster, we mean Atzilus. Nothing more. Nothing more. It's a different story. I'm not talking about that's another story. The Eberster. Right. That just shows, because that's Alakus. So you can imagine. You want to know what Atmos is like, right?
Yeah. But we only speak about what's written.
No, as I said, the Rabbeim are pouring it out because you know why? Maybe it doesn't make a difference. That's what they could say. It's just like Nachamadrege. Fine.
Quick, so there must have made a difference.
I'm sure it makes a difference, and we're trying to understand. But it's important to know that it's not just all in one pot here. So in Geras HaKodesh she says, in Tanya Geras HaKodesh she says that the neshamas. You have a Tanya here. Give me the Kita. So in Geras HaKodesh she says that the neshamas come from the kelim of Atzilus. Remember saying neshama of Atzilus, right? That's a pretty high level of neshama of Atzilus. So from neshama of Atzilus, so neshama of Atzilus comes from the kelim of Atzilus. And actually, all these levels we just spoke about, nefesh, ruach, neshama, is b'riya, yitzira, asiyah. Right? Asiyah is ruach, is nefesh. Yitzira is ruach. B'riya is neshama. So what's chaya? Malchus of Atzilus. The law, which is makif and atik, arich of b'riya. And so what's yechida? Yechida is from the kelim of Atzilus, which are iyu v'chayu gamu echad. He's one with these kelim, like he says, shebehen v'al yodan, through them, with them, in them, and through them he created. Raksha kelim. Now, what are the kelim? Raksha kelim b'chinas achreina shebebeira. The containers is what he said. The nitzutz. Remember, the b'chinas alakus. It's from the lowest level of the beta. Why is it the lowest level? Because it's only a small, limited expression of the beta. Because, like we said with Shadeh, because they confine the energy. That's why it's b'chinas achreina. The Isavas Umayir, because the Isavas itself, creation comes from the energy. And the containers, what they do is they only confine, in order for the nivra to become a yesh. Okay? That's why the containers are called Tachteina Shebebeira. So what does he say here?
You're only doing that in the Shoma of Atzilus, and the regular people, how does this process go?
I'll tell you in a second. Here we go. So he says, "Ein b'chinas bittul gam geen nishmasad mashiach mezivuk dezun dat zil kein shel be ein b'chal yesh b'davar nifran ein b'chinas lukus b'tzim tzmatzim kein akelam diutzu dat zil ein b'chinas gula dat tzim tzmer and so hu akam b'nan shalom b'tzim tzim this chol."
Goes better in Shoma. But later you have
Goes with
the Ellen Shoma is coming from the six.
not a gila.
Until it comes down here, it's going through more things. Shoma Datzilis comes down here like the way that it is in its own.
Okay, good.
What else the mission?
Fine. So the answer to that is, first of all, he's talking about the others here. So they are neshamas of Atzilus, pure neshamas of Atzilus. It's not a problem. The rest of us, the root is there, but we go through. We start assuming the garments and all this. We go through all the local stations, basically. They're like an express train from Atzilus.
Like a shuttle.
Right, a straight line. So the Rebbe brings off from the Kutat Torah that when the Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to Pari Mitzrayim, it was like a neshama of Atzilus speaking to earth. So he blow here, he was Atzilus, Mamash speaking.
And he still didn't blow him away.
That's how deep the clip is. Yeah, but the key thing is that he didn't blow him away either.
Right.
Look who prevailed. You don't look at the moment; you have to look at the big picture.
Who won the war?
No, but I'm saying it took like 10 makkahs, and his heart kept getting harder.
Power is very high.
Yeah, para was that term, Yifroim, Pal, Oyer?
No, because if you wanted to really blow him away, it'd have to be a Hamshacha from Lifnei Tzimtzum or from Ak. Yeah, that's it. Atzilus can maintain itself, but doesn't mean it can change. Atzilus is still Eragvul at the end of the day.
The Erech Chaim is saying that Paro was the symbol for Emet HaKlipa. And Moshe Rabbeinu was running away when the Mata Nerach and Nochash, so the Yishat
Nochash HaKadmeni.
You are Moshe Rabbeinu, only you could go against.
The Pasuk says, Tanin HaGodl. He was a big serpent.
But it's also what the Sikha says about Paro being the ultimate Kedusha of Narin Kol Oyer.
That's like another one that has
It's like Lilith got there too.
That's why it says Boy al Pare. Why I say boy? Because when he saw Pare's klippas, he didn't want to go. He was afraid to go. And Hashem had to go with him. Come with me. I'll go with you. And you go into the deepest levels. Tan Hagadol, the Zayah says.
Say late.
Right, that's Pirish, yeah.
What about Adam Rishon here? Where is he fitting?
Wherever you fit him in before you learn this mimer.
We're just talking about these Amavos are bringing down.
So I'm saying wherever you fit him in, when you learn about the Avis, what do you do with Adam? Tell me.
Yeah. We want to see what the Rebbe said. You don't speak about it yet.
You speak the Avis. The Avis, look, when you read Basi Legani, it says Adam was the first one that caused the Shekhinah to leave. Avram was the first one to bring it back down. So that's how we talk about it. I mean, it depends what you're talking about. Which part of Adam? Adam in history was the one that caused the Shekhinah to be concealed. That doesn't mean he wasn't a great man. I mean, it was Adam. It depends what you talk about. There's a lot of aspects to these people. Avis we call the Avis. Adam was also. Why don't we call Adam our Av? He was also our grandfather.
Right.
No, you have an answer. So I'm saying this question precedes Ayin Beis. So whatever your answer is, you apply it. It doesn't change that. I'm just trying to point out how we go off on a tangent, but this has nothing to do with Ayin Beis you're asking right now. What you're saying is a question before we knew there was Ayin Beis, right?
Well, no, he's discussing the unique level of the obvious.
But we know that, but you always knew the Ovis were unique. I'm asking you a question.
Yes.
Did you ever wonder why Adam is not called one of the Ovis? Or Noach for that matter? Avram was the 20th generation. All his grandfathers were our grandfathers.
Shame.
We don't call them Ovis. So think about it, why?
They screwed up. They screwed up.
Other was a very big great man.
Yeah,
Well, you learn Basi Lagani, you understand right away why. Because they began a new process that would lead to Matan Torah.
He's an elite Ushma, but he's still at the Bechira.
All the Rishonis are coming from Other.
I understand. He made a mistake.
Does this help Pshat in Ayin Beis here, or this is a completely different discussion? I'm asking.
Discussion.
I don't target, just one name about the others.
What?
One name about the others.
What?
Okay, anyway.
About the others.
So anyway, so we say Al-Kain Nikrakel V'hu mislabes b'nitzutz hayechida, and these containers, which is the Tachtena Shebebeira, because they're basically God's instruments and divine instruments, that manifests in nitzutz hayechida sheirish hadal madrega shebeneshama. So you see what we're talking about here? So the containers of Atzilus manifest in the Kelim of Atzilus, which is the nitzutz hayechida. So nitzutz nivra, when you say nitzutz nivra, what means nivra? Yechid is a nivra? Yeah, it's the kelim. It's the containers of Atzilus, so it's a nivra.
What's a who? The who? What's that? It's a...
The kelim. I'm sorry. The kelim are not, the kelim are lukus. I'm sorry. Nitzutz nivra is yechida. So what's the kelim? The level that he spoke before, the small spark. Remember he says, Kayech, he started from the Eitz Chaim. What did he say? Yes, nitzutz kadma oid shu b'chinas alakus nimshach b'madrega achlein shebebeir v'zeu nitzutz mislabish b'keich nitzutz achad nivra. So what's the nivra here? The neshama is the nivra. Creation.
The Yechida.
The Yechida, which comes from the Kelim of Atzilus, which are alakus, the lowest level of alakus, because Kelim contain. So bottom line is, a neshama is a contained form of energy. So there's no way that it's the whole. Definitely not Eirab Likvul. It's a confined entity. Where does it originate from? The lowest level of Elikus, which is the Kelim of Atzilus.
The Kelim.
Correct. Yeah. Now he goes back to explain Ve'erev. Who mislabish b'nitzay yichish sheirish hadal madregish shebeneshama.
He didn't say that this is the Gvul, the Yechida.
Who said it says a gvul? I'm saying to you, neshama is a gvul. That's what I said. Neshama is a beira, nivra. He calls it nitzutz nivra.
Your neshama is in your body, not in someone else's.
However you explain it, even in Atzil, neshama is a nitzutz nivra. That nitzutz nivra is connected to the kelim of Atzilus, which are mamish alakus.
So it is chelek elaka.
It's a nice question, but it's not. It doesn't mention it. Huh?
What
he is talking about?
What's wrong with this? Chelek elaka.
Talking about
Is
Yechida.
not
Hold on. Very simple. You want a chelik alaka? Just don't get disturbed. Chelik alaka is exactly this nitzutz of the yechid is a chelik that's coming from the nitzutz called kelim of Atzilus, or mamash alakos. So it's a chelik alaka.
He said that the Etzam and Neshama is higher than that.
He said what he said, but I'm talking about the Rebbe Rashab says.
You said it Friday with the answer.
I'm talking what we're learning here. You asked me a question, so you can't ask me. That's a different discussion. Because I gave in to answer a question that wasn't relevant. So now you want to go there? That's what I did. If I was really strict, I wouldn't even go there.
Weakness.
No, it's not a moment of weakness. I have no problem talking. I have no problem talking about anything, but I want you to recognize that you're going off with your agenda, not the Rebbe Rashab's. That's all I want. If you acknowledge that in writing, I have no problem going anywhere. No, but because this to me is more important education, what I just said, than everything we learn. Because it means you don't focus. You're not learning what he's learning, you're going in 50 directions. I have no problem with doing that. But to acknowledge you're doing it. Because I will not accept that it's legitimate in Ayin Beis. I accept it as a legitimate conversation, but it's not learning Ayin Beis.
That's an opportunity.
No, but
So is that what you do? If you're teaching them, if your students in class said they want to talk about something else, you say, "We're teaching now this," right? Don't you say that? Let me ask you: you teach your class? Would you let your students go on tangent?
My job is to be a madrich and a mashpia and a roer. So when a student is starting to ask something that is not directly to that, even though that they have bad feelings about it, but I feel that
And what about
she
this?
won't hear this in the home or from another place, and I have
So
to do
what
something.
what happens if the whole class starts taking you in all kinds of directions? What do you do? Is there any way you ever say die?
Yeah, you have to say die, but
Okay, so first of all, you're not little girls in the class here, number one. You're adults who learn Chassidus. Number two, everything is relative. Number three, I've always said, why don't you call me outside of the shir and ask me your questions? Well, doesn't things have a time for everything? And what does the Gemara mean? I understand the opportunities, but what do? We should not be learning Ayin Beis. We should sit here in an unfocused way, just talk. Now, I have no problem. This is not anger. To me, it's focused learning. It's focused learning. You can't cover everything because if I follow you, and then everyone has to have equal time. Do you agree with that or not? Let me ask you, yes or no? And everybody's going to have different questions. You can imagine.
Believe me, I had a question the whole time. I've been holding myself back. Big time. The whole class.
First of all, I said many times, I don't even know. You can't talk about the etzem and neshama. What does the etzem and neshama mean to you? And let me ask you a better question. If there's etzem and neshama, how come the Eitz Chaim, which knows more about neshamas than you and I, doesn't mention it? He says nitzuz beida manifests in nitzuz nivra called yechida. So you're bringing in other things you learned, and I would say stick with what we're learning here, understand it well, and then say, let me go back to what I've learned about etzem and neshama and see what it means. You may discover maybe you never knew what it meant in the first place. Most likely. You agree? Because this he says befedish. You cannot say this. He says Eitz Chaim says there's nothing higher than Beida. He says the lowest target of Beida becomes a spark that manifests in the spark of Yechida. Now he's calling it Kelim of Atzilus as Elikus. That manifests in Yechida, which in turn manifests in all the levels of the neshama as it comes into Bri Yitzir Asiyah. Clear? So what do you want to know? Maybe what you call Atzmus your entire life simply means Kelim of Atzilus. Is it possible? Everything you've ever learned about Atzmus maybe means just Kelim of Atzilus. Because I challenge you, if it doesn't, tell me the difference. Tell me between the difference between Elikus. Now I'm talking about Atzmus of Atzmus now. Even Atzmus and Neshama. Tell me the difference between Kelim of Elikus, that Kelim of Atzilus that is Mamash Elikus, and higher levels than that. If you can explain to me the difference, then we can start talking business. I don't think you'll have very, very hard pressed to distinguish between the Elikus of Atzilus and the Elikus that's higher than Atzilus. Because the Elikus of Atzilus itself is the level of a Rebbe. And the Rebbe is in the Neshama of Atzilus. Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what you're talking about. I would say that's pretty good. Again, I'm not trying to knock. Of course Chassidus talks about the higher levels. That's why I keep saying there's Atzilus the Kolos, Atzilus the Pratis. If you want, yes, you can find all this. Not in Atzilus, you find Atzilus also in the Godhead, so to speak, in the divine source. But then, what are you talking? Something that you have to be a real understander of Chassidus to distinguish between Atzilus the Kolos and Atzilus the Pratis. I guarantee you're not going to be able to find many words to distinguish between the two, because that's already a whole other. I would say let's try to understand Elam Haza Hagashmi V'Achumri compared to that a little Ruchnius. That's where we are more or less. Would that be a fair statement? So to talk about mathematics, we're not talking mathematics here. We're just going to make mathematical levels, another level. That's not where we want to go. Now, you can say it says all these levels. Correct. But if you really want to understand them, you have to understand their quality, not just another level. It's easy to say, okay, I checked them off. Asiya, Yitzira, Bria, Atzilus. I'm already in Keser. Now I know there's Akudim, Nekudim, Ak. Now Kav, Atik higher than the Kav, then Igul Hagadol, Tzimtzum, Erein Sof. I just knocked off a whole bunch of levels. I'm sure you've all heard them. And it's fascinating to know what they are.
We're done.
No. That's it. We're done. The thing that I keep trying to impress upon myself and upon you, the same thing, is these are levels in us, these are levels of refinement. These are levels of Elikus. Elikus and God and man are not the same thing. And right now he's brought it down to very, as I said, Kalim of Atzilus and so on. Just for one thing, I will tell you, Etzem and Neshama, the only thing you can really say, it's not these levels. Etzem and Neshama you can't talk about. That's why it's called Etzem and Neshama. It's how the Neshama is rooted before it began to be manifest. So what are you going to say about it? We talk about it easily. I know we just say Etzem and Neshama, Etzem and Neshama, Etzem and Neshama. You don't need Etzem and Neshama to be awakened in Yom Kippur, by the way.
No, the question
If you had a nice Gili of Nefesh, you'd also be awakened in Yom Kippur.
Before creation, he asked him the Shabbos Yisrael. That was the question. And he said that's
So it's a very good question, and I don't think you're going to find an easy answer for that question.
No, it's
But you gave a very important sentence right now.
What?
About the Etzem and Neshama.
Okay. Whenever you say God is talking to people before creation, you got yourself a lot of problems in explaining that. What does that mean? Nothing exists, so who's he talking to? So you see, I mean, it's a whole discussion. It's not even here. He doesn't discuss that here. Because then you're discussing how things are. You could say the whole thing is a mashal only. God's not talking to anyone. It's a mashal. The God is thinking about what he's going to create. That's who he's not consulting. You think he has consultants hanging around?
Exactly.
So, clearly does not mean physical, but tzaddikim sitting around.
Tiny that he had. He's a tiny that he had.
No, it means envisioning. So there's a language. We say Shem HaMushal. God is consulting. He doesn't consult. He consulted the angels. It says Nasa Adam. We shall create man in the divine image. Who's this we? So God, the answer to Moshe is actually they want to make a mistake. Let them make a mistake. Explain that one, by the way. Why would God do that? Why would He put a typo in so we should make mistakes? Exactly, because He created a world of plurality where you could imagine and think that there's more than one. But there's a purpose in that. I'm trying to say is, again, I have no problem addressing anything, but why, if it's so important to you, why don't you just pick up a phone and call me an hour from now? I always say this to people. They never call me. So they say, because you're so busy. So if I'm so busy, why are you so we're learning this, why are we doing other things? It's not the reason. People are not, because I say to myself, people don't call, because you know what? When they're learning, that's when they're indulging themselves. And when they're not learning, they're busy on other things.
No, maybe they respect your time. They don't.
So email me. Email me, and I'll tell you, I don't have time or whatever. Trust me, I will respond to you. If it's exactly what you say sometimes to a student in the class. You say, write it down, and we'll ask later. And I think I've answered more than I haven't answered, actually, from all these tangents, by the way. You could ask him, he monitors this. So with all this niceness, I'm still answering. I just want to make this so-called comment because it's important, or else you don't end up anywhere.
Back to yourself. The last couple of days I was a little bit worried.
Don't be worried.
It was very mellow and very laid back and very easy.
I'm still...
You back to yourself.
You spoke to Rabbi. You said that to me. That's one of your...
You said that? No, I didn't talk about it. No.
So let's learn after it. V'zeu ve'era bekel shadei, b'mchinas primis hakelim nimshach hanitzus lavish ba'avis. And this is the meaning. This also explains the Eitz Chaim. Beautiful. Okay, so that's the Eitz Chaim. So the v'zeu ve'era bekel shadei, b'mchinas primis hakelim. From the primis hakelim. That's what he said before. From the primis hakelim. What are we going to second? This is the meaning of Bekel Shadei. The Mebchinas Pnimis Hakel Nimshach Hanitzutz Lislabish Ba'ovis.
It's the critical eye.
Kel Shadei, from the dimension of the Pnimis Hakelim, which is Kel Shadei, how God manifests in the nitzutz, in that's Elikus.
He said it before.
I like this.
Okay, nimshach hanitzutz comes the nitzutz lislabish ba'ovis. Avram b'chinas chesed, that says Yitzchak b'chinas gvura, v'Yaakov b'chinas hateferes. Very nice. So basically, what he said before was, through Kel Shaddai, God revealed Himself to Avram b'chesed. Then he said, "V'gam, in yeah." Okay, that's exactly right. So basically, through Kel Shaddai, that's the Kelim of Atzilus. That's Plimis HaKelim, that's Kel Shaddai. Remember, it's a name of God. but it's how God says die. So it's how godliness is manifesting in Gvul. Die, enough. And that brings the nitzutz called Yechida, which manifests in the Ovis. Avram Chesed, that's Silas Yitzchak Gvura.
It's interesting, the nitzutz cotton, how does it come?
So this nitzutz, nimshach ha-nitzutz, the Islam is nimshach ha-nitzutz. You have to say, so when you say Avram is Chesed of Atzilus, you're talking about Kelim of Atzilus? No. You have to say it's a level lower than the Keli.
It's the nitzutz from the Keli.
The nitzutz from the Keli.
How does the nitzutz come about? Because it bangs against the parsa. Remember when I did? Because the friction between the Keli and the parsa, that causes the nitzutz, sparks, and that is what's the Islamish in
But he doesn't mention parsa here. I think it's not correct. Where did he say that? Remind me? By his Sneitzus.
The friction.
Yeah, no, I know. Where did he say this? I don't think it's appropriate to say that here.
Why? It seems like it's exactly from there, because the nitzutz that comes from the Keli, from a Husa Keli. How does the nitzutz come?
You be medayik in the word nitzutz, but I don't think he means nitzutz like that.
Where does the nitzutz come?
Because there it goes into biyah. No, it's for sure not correct. No, because that's biyah. He said biyah. Biyah gets his nitzutz from Atzilus, either from the Kelim of Atzilus, because there's no parsa.
Right.
This is before the parsa.
See, it's on page ratio.
Yeah, but that's biyah. Look there, biyah.
That nitzutz goes into biyah, but you can also have it from the friction of the Keli.
No, but there's no parsa yet. The parsa is of the malchus.
He's not talking about he's talking about the illness over there.
He's talking about biyah. Neshamas also neshamas biyah. There's no problem, but that's biyah. Here we're talking neshamas of Atzilus. No, for sure not. It doesn't mean it that way. No.
So what causes the nitzutz? Just comes out.
It doesn't mean nitzutz like you mean. Nitzutz doesn't mean it doesn't mean spark as a spark but through a tension. It means spark as a drop, like mazel. I mean that's arich, but it doesn't mean spark like that, for sure not. Now, but dakos maybe there's also a part in Atzilus. I'm not going to say not, but it doesn't say that. Let's put it this way: I would not associate.
That causes the nitzutz to come out from the Hosakeli.
That's Ratzon Hashem. He wants it to come out.
That's a motion of a fire with a little spark that,
No, it says right here. There for sure is ben Atzilus the Bria. That's for sure. That's why Shazor Akon and Avdel is Bakeli.
Why can't you say it's a friction? It's still in Atzilus, within Atzilus.
There's no parsa in Atzilus. The parsa is after Malchus. Between Atzilus and Biyah, you're talking here neshamas of Atzilus. It says Chesed Atzilus.
Atzilus that could bang against the parsa.
The parsa is not there yet. We're talking to the Kelim of Atzilus. Don't have not come to a parsa yet. You're talking higher than the parsa. You're talking about Chesed of Atzilus, he says.
Talking about before the bang.
Right, there's no parsa to bang against.
With a big bang?
It's not talking the same level. It's confusing if you talk the same level. So nimshach hanitzus lislabish ba'ovis avram b'chinas chesed atzilus b'chinas gvura d'Yaakov b'chinas teferes. V'zel ve'era b'kel the shem shadai ba'atzilus hu iyin hakelim shemagbilim esa'er. Okay, shem shadai atzilus is the kelim that contain the energy, but they're v'anitzus kotn shem muhus hakelim heir b'gili mamish b'nishmosim. And the spark, the small spark that was from the essence of the containers, radiated literally a revealed way in their souls. Then comes the Aveda, which we learned already. What time is it?
It's 11:10.
Maybe we should stop. Let me just read one thing from the Tafshin Gimel, because he goes explains this a little better. I think we got it anyway. Now it's a little clearer. It's a combination of the Eitz Chaim, Vayetzavim Tovkuf Samaches, Samtikot Kedin Re'ei, and the Geras HaKedesh Simachov. All those are necessary to understand as well. It's a sugya. Also, in the Geras HaKedesh makes it very clear how the neshamas come out of the kelim of Atzilus. Sheyotzu v'nifredu. That's a lashon. Sheyotzu v'nifredu, which we also learned earlier. What that means? Sheyotzu v'nifredu. So what does he say in Tafshin Gimel? Let me just see here if any additional elements here. Where are we here?
That's the Kelim of Atzilus, right?
I don't know. I'm not going to start speculating on that. So he says like this. Here goes. Well, you wanted to say something?
No.
How
how did they get the office become defined by Chesed Gvur first? I thought that was not the Chaya of the Neshama. He said that the Narana was after Chachma Bina and Zun. Wouldn't that be in the Zal category, the different levels of Chesed Gvur first?
It's a good question. See, this is a shayla b'inyan zeh, just for the record. This is Taka Mamish and learning this. It's a good question that you're asking. Yeah, but I think it goes two ways, because there he also says that the nitzutz cotton is atik. The nitzutz beira is atik, and arich is the yechida. So I think that's why you have to say that the Eitz Chaim is not talking about the Eitz Chaim is talking in the whole of Atzilus. So Naran Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chaya would be Chochmah through Malchus, correct? And Yechida is Arich, and Nitzutz Beira is Atik that manifests. He said that clear. That says Eitz Chaim. Or there's another interpretation that Chaya is Arich, and then Yechida is a little higher. And that's okay, fine. But then he says, then I think he moves the whole thing lower. And now Kalim of Atzilus is becoming what was before Atik. Understand? Atik.
The source of that. Kalim of Atzilus
is the Elikus. Tachtein Shebelikus. Tachtein Shebebeira. That was Atik. And that manifests in the Chaya Nefesh Ruach Neshama of the Ovis, and so that's how you have to explain it. Yeah. Atik is the Tachtein Shebe Ein Seif, which is the nitzvah. The first spark is the Tachtein Shebe Beira. So first he explains that it's Atik, then later he explains that it's the Kelim of Atzilus. So your question is correct, but I think I referred to before. It's he's moving. Yeah, he's notching down for sure because he's going. That's why I said you need to get us a Kaddish, because also it answers another question. If you read the Eitz Chaim, then what happens over Sein and Merkava? Where do they fit exactly? How are they Merkava to what? Well, it doesn't really. I mean, you could answer is that they're arich to the atik of the nitzutz cotton.
If nitzutz beira is the kelim, so that's
yechida. That's yechida. That's atik, arich. Okay, so they're an arich, but now he's speaking how they are on lower levels. Remember, at the end of the day, Avram Yitzchak Yankov are chesed gevurah the first of Atzilus. The question is, what does that mean? So you see, that means, what that really means, it's not the kelim of Atzilus, it's the nitzutz, it's coming from the nitzutz, it's a nitzutz from the kelim of Atzilus. That's essentially what he's saying. That's the bottom line. And he's using the Eitz Chaim to explain it all without, that's why I wanted to look actually in Tavshin Gimel.
It can't be the kelim of Atzilus because that's nitzutz beira.
Right, exactly.
So they're like
one step below. Yeah. Okay, so let me see here if the Tavshin Gimel has anything to add, because he quotes literally one word.
Maybe they could be chatzais.
It could. I mean, but
maybe he structures the word mepnimis.
Maybe it could say. I don't want to speculate.
And it says again, in other words, it means the pneumius, the mahus.
Does it help you if you know it's chatzais sakelim?
Like it's have a place with the put them.
No. Which self?
It shouldn't be out there.
It's probably not correct, but I'm not positive. It could be you're right. I don't want to say. I'm not sure. What's it? Okay, because it could okay, he brings the whole Eitz Chaim. He skips that the second taich that it's arich. He just says the neshama dal b'chinas levinas fidas nefesh shu b'chinas malchus v'ruach inyan hamidus shu b'chinas zon neshama b'chinas bina k'miskos v'nishmas
shadat tevina.
Right, shadat also okay shadat tevina v'chayu b'chinas chochma k'miskos v'chochma tichya. What tichya? Tichya. V'imay yezus fidas hachochma hireishis ha'asfidas he adds now. And even though the Sfiras Chachma is the top of all the Sfiras, but Cholzein is Sfiras Chachma l'mayla ma Sfiras. Nevertheless, it's higher than the Sfiras. He's answering the same question because l'cheira Chaya is makif. So he says Chachma is higher. Ulechein hinegam b'asar mamor shem b'asar sfiras b'chitzeni shalahem hinis sfiras Chachma uvdalas ma sfiras ma tes mamoros ksiv b'hu vayemer ub'sfiras Chachma nem bereishis kamaymer bereishis nam maymer hu. So that's how he's explaining it here in Tafshin Gimel. That Chachma is arich and Chachma is chaya because it's higher and removed. I'm just saying this Mamish the Rebbe Friedrich Rebbe is learning this Ayin Beis and adding a different Nukuda here. Interesting. Very interesting. That's in relation to Maimer. Then over Kolshkein, but Pnimis as the Sfiras Achach moved out B'shar Kol HaSfiras. So even the Chitzenis of the Sfiras are definitely the Pnimis. Okay. Ulechein be'inyan haneshama had a medreges chayi he b'chinas makif v'hainu makif hakorav sheyesh la'achiz be'pnimis. He's like being metavach between both teaching here. So the Rebbe Rashab teaches it's arich. And the Friedrich Rebbe is saying it's chokhmah, but it's a form of makif.
He's also saying that it's chokhmah.
But he brings a second. Yeah. Here he actually says this. So l'chein makif kol sheyesh la'achiza be'primis v'chol ha'giluyim denaran him ha'makiv dechaya nikras mazal Hashem shemameno bo v'al yodo nasal v'nativ benaran. Yeah. I know the whole thing is word for word. But I just read a whole piece that's not word for word. So you want to learn Ayin Beis, you want to learn, that's why you really want to have the Friedrich Rebbe Sofer. Is that how you say? Naranach? Okay. Nefesh Shugam Shema Chaya, Sheba Neshama. V'hi kelela seisem shekulam nichlolam boy kedimyan iskalus v'lis chachma bina shein reishis ishtalshus v'zoh u'mach shem b'chinas ishtalshus mamish.
That he added, shein reishis ishtalshus.
Okay. I'm going to actually sit and compare them. Shein reishis ishtalshus v'zoh u'mach shem b'chinas ishtalshus mamish. Okay. Because that's what, because it's behesem to what he's saying. Harihem iskalim ba'arech ampin shehi b'chinas shalamayel mishtalshus Umavai Beis Chaim Shazel Kedim Milchemer Arishon Shaposhim Mechol Tzura V'Unesa Kol Adal Tzuras. Meanwhile, Los Boss, right? But Benitzah Zeh Nikri Yechidim Mislabish Nitzah Kotten Shuel Lukus Mamash V'Ual Derech Mislabish B'Chinas Atik Ba'Arechampim Da'atik U'B'Chinas Taktein Shabein Seif Mislabish Ba'Arechampim Shureish Mokar and Etzolim. So far, Los Boss?
Which one? But besides the relations of
Okay. U'Kamoy Ken Hini Nitzah Kotten Shuel Lukus Mamash B'Chinas Hakelim Da'Tzilis. Okay, the same Kamoy Ken.
Here he's saying that this is B'chinas HaKelim Da'atzilus, not that the Nitzitz is coming out from B'chinas Da'atzilus. It's exactly the same lashon, like here. B'chinas HaKelim. Mibchinas or B'chinas?
Also meh. As they say, well, let me read on. Okay, but Mibchinas, okay, you're comparing, right? Yeah. Let's go. It's fun. We're going to get it down. Like two equations, making sure they match. Like two formulas. Okay. So he goes like this. Because this now he's now moving over to Kelim Natzilis. Shehena lekus mamish livrim bohen val yodin ma'ayin liyesh. Okay. Rak shehem nikraim b'chinas achrein shebebeir liyeshehim magbilim esa'er disavas ima'er da'er dafku ha'mahava. Now he's going to add. U'kamish shekosav rabbeinu nishmeseiden Omnam liyaser b'chinas sensef har yachal liyashakreich ha'mahavi yegam kim b'chinas sensef. Hinuzeu inyan ha'kelim shemagbilim. There's additions, right?
Yeah. No, I can't.
Yeah. Esa'er b'gdei she'yanivre b'keich halikei ha'beire baruch hu b'mitzias yesh. He's using the language from what we learned before. That if he's going back to Haggadah, that if you just let the air to continue. V'hagbola zu shal ha'kelim b'inyan zeu hu she'hamahava nasa mechaya it's a whole addition here. So he's saying now, but he's giving Havana now. He's saying this thing with the Kelim ad, the Agbol of the Kelim, this is Ata Mechaya. And now he goes into the whole piece here. When you say Al Tikra, if you do it, the Chol Al Tikra, but Azal Bola Hesif. Al Tikra Halichas Allah Halachas. Shall I read from here? I'll read a minute. Tinyani da halachas bola hesef l'farashin da halichas elam hu ay da halachas v'ayna dikiyum ha'elam v'nagoshu ay da halachas v'olim v'davdei k'meshkos v'mlei barisi yem lei l'chukas v'ayim v'eres l'samtim v'cholim abriya v'akim shalom ay da teira. Goes on and on, okay. Then he goes back and says like this. V'chein al tikra mechai el mahava tin mishnei yonim elu disavas v'chayish shem ke'echad hu disavas v'kim anivroim. V'zeh ma shabo ma eres v'kelim, that's else. V'zeh al tikra mechai, v'zeh mitzad akbol the kelim. Ela mahava the zel mitzad meilas hakbola sa'er she'ev shalahasik b'miktzas al kapon b'gdulas salem musamahus omram li is the beikri his galus hakbola lechenik lakelim b'chinis tachtenish b'beida baruch. It's basically an elaboration to establish why it's tachtenish b'beida. So ata machaya is mitzad hakbola. Altikul machaya. What do you say? Altikul machaya. Altikul machaya el mahava. So it's also machaya through the kelim. Okay, I got it. Yeah. Then he continues. V'zeu ve'edel Avram al Yisrael Yankov. Another paragraph here. Then that Pirish bekel shadi hu shebepnimis shemepnimis hakelim datzilus nimshach nitzutz lislabish b'madreges yichidas shebeneshama shu sheirish kol adal madreges nefesh ruach neshama chaya shebeneshama v'kalelo seis masher kulam necholim b'yichida b'yiskalos klolis b'bli sheyu sham b'yiskalos zu be'esa mitziz k'ma she'en boyim b'yiskalos v'yima yez the ranach b'yesum kulam b'yichida einem sham b'chinas mitziz klal hinim. He goes a whole arichas now, how it's all nichol and yichida and how it's different. So this definitely will help. Okay, this is very, very good to learn, because it goes into detail how the process goes from nitzud beida to yichida to chaya to the pnimius, and that's how the ovis. It's a whole sifir he adds. Very, very detailed.
Isn't it interesting how this man?
It
said Shavuos, but it still has to do with the time. This man.
They both said Shavuos.
Ayin Beis was
Shavuos, yeah. Shavuos, not Be'era.
But it came back to Be'era where he
I know.
In the Parsha.
That creates the...
That's right.
It's becoming one...
Maybe he wrote it right after.
What?
Maybe he continued writing it.
I know, but you said that he wrote it and then he only later added it.
No, he made it...
Like that to work out with the week.
No, but the Pnim, he wrote... This Pnim will read...
He wrote it as a hemshech to this. He wrote it all at once, he said.
Yes, so then it was very fitting. When he finished Vayigash, he was rewriting it when Be'eda was happening. It makes very much sense what you just said. It's very good. Understand?
The whole thing is about Be'eda, I love it.
Yeah. Not just the beginning and end.
Yeah.
Not talking about this Shavuos Maimon, that's when he delivered
I
it.
thought he wrote the whole hemshech before he started saying it.
No, he could have continued right. No, not necessarily. He definitely did. I don't think that's good. He didn't. No, it makes a lot of sense that he was writing. That would explain maybe also why he wasn't delivering it. Maybe he hadn't written it yet. It's possible. He also traveled. Very nice. I think it's very important to read the next. I'm going to read it next time. Like, you know what? Well, let's just stop here. We did another. This was an important chapter. Very slow, very difficult chapter. But I think we got it now. I got it. It's better. Okay, so we did a review of chapter 130, which basically is page 251, 252, 253. Okay, we'll stop.